A turn to the three-headed beast awaits the field of 14 hopefuls as the journey to the title reaches its third to last race. A tricky test to come tonight. We're live from the virtual Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania. We welcome you to the 7th race of the Season 6 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs. Near the mountains in Pennsylvania, we're glad to have you joining us on the KBueno Racing Network, where alongside Francisco Bacchiao in the booth, I'm Kenneth Bueno. A lot to cover after last week's event at Dover Motor Speedway. We continue to whittle down the competitors eligible for the Championship 1, but the race is left to make an impact. Number 2, after tonight, only 2 races remain. Pocono will be very important in the chase for the championship.
Well, happy to be here, Kenneth, from the Pocono Raceway, and tonight, as you said, they're a critical race, as after today, there will only be 2 races left, and that's the Phoenix Raceway and the Homestead Miami Speedway. That is it. Between now and a championship being crowned, and Lawson Peel currently has a 12-point lead over Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who currently sits second in the standings, and it's still a race amongst your top 4, mathematically and realistically, with a shot at the title. But if any of them want to make inroads, it's got to be today, because you need to go into at least Phoenix with a chance of being able to claw your way in. There you see the standings graphic. You look at Kyle Benson at 13 back and Jaden Porter 23 back. Right up there, right up until there, those are the guys that still have a chance of really making something out of these last 3. Really, from Brandon Banks on downwards, it's about trying to get to that 5th position in the standings, because it really is pretty tight from 6th all the way back to I would say about the 12th position. It's a scramble to try and get it to the top 10 in points, but Brandon Banks has a strangle on that 5th position at the moment. Eric Schaefer looking to try and see if he can salvage that P5 after having missed that race at the Sonoma Raceway. But Kenneth, this battle amongst the top 4 today is going to be an interesting one, because Pocono is all about strategy, and that's what the first race here earlier this season consisted of.
And this might be the game changer as to who might fall out of mathematical contention, or those that will push themselves a little closer to Lawson Peel, who's had all the bonus points since the start of the playoffs. He's almost been unbeatable. We've seen single-digit point gaps between 1st and 2nd, but it always seems to fluctuate back and forth. And Dover certainly gave us a big swing in the points because of the man sitting in 2nd, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, all that he had to endure at the Monster Mile just last Wednesday. And here's what happened. It all starts with an entry to pit road under green flag stops. Seems routine until he cooks it on entry, spinning Kevin D'Elia in front of him. And then on the exit, after serving the pit road speeding penalty, around goes fellow playoff driver Patrick Thompson. Ethan gets into him. This is the contact that will be reviewed later by race officials and ultimately ended in the decision. Then a contact with Tony Kivick going up the racetrack, causing a pretty sizable yellow almost midway through the race. But then the strategy helped Moreno and his teammate Porter get to the front. Moreno making this crucial pass on Porter with about 22 laps to go, and ever since then he was able to pull away to what would have been his 4th career 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series victory. But then came the penalty by the league admins. He had pleaded at the time of the contact with Patrick Thompson that he did not get a Lucky Dog candidacy because he had an unsafe pit road exit, when in fact it was because he got into contact with the spinning Thompson, meaning he would not have gotten his lap back and he wouldn't have won the race or put himself in that position. So Francisco, it's only 12 points after being put a lap down from where he finished last week. A pretty big shunt emotionally and mentally. He still, though, has a shot at it, but just a little farther back than what it would have been after last week if he had been credited the victory.
For a brief moment, it looked like it might have been a toss-up for the championship lead going into today, but now it's at 12 points from that move, from going from winning the race to ultimately ending up in the P9 spot. I think luckily for Moreno is that the strategy worked out even in that situation, because it put so many cars a lap down that it actually allowed him to still get a top 10 finish out of that day. And it's been viewed as a controversial decision in the past week, but at the end of the day, these guys are now here at Pocono with the chance to right the wrongs. And Ethan, who's had just an up and down playoffs, but has had a chance of getting up there and racing against Lawson Peel for this championship, is looking to see if Pocono is a track where he can make the ultimate comeback from all the controversy and get himself back into the championship contention. He was fast in the first race. He's been fast all playoffs long. Lawson Peel, he's been consistent all season long, and he's been the points leader for most of the season. and he has led the entirety of the playoffs up until this current moment in time. And he's looking to try and continue that into Phoenix, which really, Kenneth, once we move to Phoenix, that's 2 races to go. All Lawson Fuel has to do is manage the gap, and that way he has a target for Homestead Miami Speedway. The objective for the other 3 is make sure the gap is as close as possible. That's way it's as close as it can be to a straight dogfight between themselves and Peel for that fight in Homestead.
No doubt that Peel has been the biggest obstacle for basically everyone else, and there are negatives and positives to take after Dover Motor Speedway. For Ethan, of course, the negative of getting the win taken away from him, but the positive is that he still is in range and still is in second in points. Also, too, his teammate Jaden Porter, because he got credited the win, what would be his first win since Charlotte back in Season 5, Porter is still eligible for the championship in terms of the mathematical sense because of gaining that W. So there is still a balance to take after Miles the Monster, after it took a bite out of a chunk of the playoff drivers here tonight at Pocono. Will it be any different? But as for the trends that have taken place here at this 3-turn triangle in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, well, the story is Drinkin' Bros Racing, Francisco. They have been oh so good at this track. Here's a look at season number 4. Eric Schaefer getting his win at Pocono when he used to drive the Chevy Camaro, when we used to drive the next gens back in this series. And then in Season 5, his teammate Lawson Peel will go on to make it 2 wins in a row for the DBR camp. There he is, coming out of the final corner to the start-finish line. Used strategy to his benefit in the playoffs that season, as a matter of fact, able to burn it down that time through, and he would only replicate it the next time we visited this tricky triangle, which was earlier this season. Off of the final corner, Peel able to get a comfortable win. Had some challenges with some strategy, but Peel was able to overcome all obstacles, and DBRs won the last 3 races here at Pocono. What's the biggest threat, Francisco, for the entire field, knowing that DBR, this is their house?
It's going to come down to strategy. Strategy is going to play a huge role in terms of how the track position hands out today. With this race being 20 laps longer than it was earlier in the season, Kenneth, that means you're probably going to be seeing a 3-stop here tonight. It's going to be very close to be able to do so, but I think it's just within that window of possibility. Last time we were here, we saw a split between 2 stops and 3 stops, and it was the 2-stop that worked for Lawson Peel in that flag-to-flag affair. The real question is, do we get another flag-to-flag affair here today? And if we don't, the timing of when the caution comes out is going to be oh so crucial. We saw that last week. The timing of cautions and what that allows you to do when that yellow flag comes out played a role in terms of who played what strategy at Dover, and it's what landed Jaden Porter that victory. If we'll see just who's on the right end of that here today if that presents itself.
And here's a look at Pocono Raceway, the 2.5-mile triangle located very much in the depths of Long Pond, Pennsylvania. It's not an easy track to find. It's sort of in the middle of nowhere, but it is a big track worthy of representation both in this series and in general. It's a ton of fun to drive, and it has given us a lot of strategy events. It opened back in 1968 and has banking that is sort of referencing a bunch of other tracks across the U.S. First turn at 14 degrees, modeled after Trenton. 8 degrees in turn 2, modeled after the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then that long sweeping final corner has the least banking of them all at 6 in turn 3, modeled after the Milwaukee Mile. This track is very difficult to drive, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's more so, Francisco, like a 3-headed beast. And I've heard lots of quotes about you can have a good 1, you can have a terrible 2 and 3, you can have every bit of combination of what your good corners are and bad corners are. And as we move throughout this race, that'll be paramount to discuss. Drivers have taken the start-finish line and pit road, and we are ready to give you trackside coverage of the starting grid for tonight's playoff event from the virtual Pocono Raceway. On the pole will be Brandon Hawken, looking to secure his 5th race win in his rookie campaign. He lines it up on pole with a 52.550. He will have Kyle Benson 13 points out of the points lead going into this race. He'll look to try and snag away the championship top spot as he starts outside in row 1. Back in row 2, a phenomenal qualifying effort for Trevor Haley, putting that 4-car to 3rd place, and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. We know all the storylines going into tonight, especially after Dover. He'll have a lot of hunger tonight to search for his 4th career win as he starts outside in row 2. Back in row 3, you'll find the 48 of AJ Green for Stonks Motorsports. Jaden Porter, the defending champ and winner, technically from last week's event, at Dover Motor Speedway is going to be in P6. Back to row number 4, that's where you find Lawson Peel. He's won the last 2 races here from the Tricky Triangle, and Craig Lauenslager, the Darlington winner, going to be on the outside in 8th place. And to round out your top 10 on the starting grid, Eric Schaefer in the 9th spot, and Adam Alishire to round out your top 10 on the grid.
P11 goes to the 0 of Jesse Prees, and alongside him, a teammate in Kevin D'Elia starting in the P12 position. Brandon Banks, DBR driver, is going to be starting in the 13th spot, trying to secure P5 in the points, with Curtis Kelly in the 71 and 14th. Looking at 15th, rookie Ryan Pandiccio will be rolling off alongside himself, with Brady Cox in that 78 and P16. Going back to 17th, Michael Newbraw in the 6th, and Tony Kivett in the 76th with a 53.14 will be rolling off from 18th. Craig Parks and Craig Rowe, a couple of Craigs there, rolling off from row 10.
Back in row 11, you'll find Christopher Bishop in the 21st spot. He's flanked by his 89 car, the CJ Munier machine, on the outside in 22nd. There's the league owner, Tyler Murray. He starts from 23rd tonight. Colin Forster rolling from 24th place. He did not set a time in qualifying, hence his start so back in this field. And same goes for Patrick Thompson, playoff driver, who finished quite well at Dover in the top 3. He'll be inside row 13 with Daniel Michel on his outside. And to finalize our 27-car grid from Pocono, the 9 car of Brandon Gillis. So we go longer, Francisco, than we did last time at Pocono Raceway. We go 100 laps this time around, a total of 250 miles. We know that strategy took over last time we were here in the season. We know that it should take over this time around. This track is very conducive to a lot of green flag action, and therefore a lot of play styles when it comes down to coming down pit road and making sure you can put yourself in that prime position, although everyone looking to beat Lawson Peel. But for now, the chase is on to beat Brandon Hawken to turn 1. He'll lead us to green with Kyle Benson on the outside of the front row. Pace car is down. We are playoff racing from the Tricky Triangle.
And AJ Green wastes no time looking to go 3 wide, and they're 4 wide. Lawson Peel all the way to the very bottom of the racetrack, trying to see if he can take some positions as we go to turn 1. He's almost to the inside of Trevor Haley. He's inside 3 wide with AJ Green right now. And as they work their way off of turn 2, so far so clean. But Lawson Peel trying to be aggressive early on to gain those positions. He's side by side with Jaden Porter. Ethan Fonseca is side by side for 3rd with Trevor Haley. Benson looking to the inside of Hawken into turn 2. Contact with AJ Green and Eric Schaefer. Schaefer with left sides on the apron. He's going to make contact with Green. They'll slide up in front of Porter and the rest of them as everybody's trying to find their way through back to turn 3.
They're still 3 wide. Going into the final corner, Jaden Porter stuck in the mess with Craig Lauenslager and Kevin D'Elia flanking him on either side. At the exit of the corner, Schaefer is loose, and he's spinning to the inside wall. Him and Prees go hard into the barrier. That should bring out our first caution of the night from Pocono, and it is a playoff driver involved at the entry of pit road.
And Porter went around as well, back on in the middle of the racetrack, Kenneth.
Look at the damage to Craig Rowe right in front of Porter. The 28 car seems to be okay, but a pretty big accident before we even conclude lap number 1. There's the rear end damage to Porter.
That's no good.
Craig Lauenslager also too with a torn up race car, the smoke billowing out of the back end of his Ford Mustang. And we have to take a pretty close look at exactly how this all unfolded. Took out 2 DBR drivers in one fell swoop. This is entering turn 3 in Francisco, already sketchy enough. This is 3 wide going into the corner. Schaefer ahead of this group. That's AJ Green on the outside. His teammate Jesse Prees down low. It's going to start here with Schaefer getting sideways.
Yeah, it looks like he just kind of gets loose, trying to put the power down, and Jesse Prees has nowhere to go, and both of them hard into the pit wall in the pit lane. We saw Casey Kane have a pretty violent crash there almost 9 years ago, Kenneth, when he hit the pit lane when pit crews were there. But you see further up the racetrack contact with Lauenslager and Porter. Lauenslager then gets hit by Bishop, and it looks like another car, which obviously gave him the damage that would end his race. Porter was able to, fortunately for him, avoid the rest of the contact. Here we are on board. Looks like with Patrick Thompson, who was the other car who got a piece of this. Out of turn 3, there you see the wreck happening. There's Bishop going down the racetrack. And no, actually Patrick Thompson able to get through cleanly, fortunately for himself. We went 80 laps in the spring with no cautions, Kenneth, but at the end of lap 1 is the yellow flag for the first time.
A look from Porter. Getting tagged by Lounslager, and then Lounslager just getting almost T-boned there at the re-entry to the racing surface. There's Bishop and Michel slowing down for the accident, but we know the 42 did get a pretty decent hit in that. So from Lounslager on the outside, already he tags the wall, and that's how it all started, Francisco. Not even the evidence of what happened with Schaefer and Freeze, but just because there were 3 wide off the corner and really had nowhere to go, tapped the outside wall and just ricocheted back into Porter.
Yeah, those are 2 separate incidents. Schaefer got loose just before this happened, but it had no impact on it. There's Schaefer getting loose. Lounslager into the wall, has to come off the wall, and no real room there. Just happens to get into the right rear of Jaden Porter, sends both of them around, and Lounslager gets the worst of it, along with Christopher Bishop. So those guys, it's going to be a tough night for them. You see Porter on the pit lane trying to repair some of that damage. Fortunately for him, it's not extensive enough to really hamper his, to really ruin his night, but it's certainly going to complicate the rest of his race very early on here on lap number 3. And just kind of noticing at least the racetrack right now, Kenneth, it's very early, but the daytime does look a bit late in the day, so we'll see if the sunlight becomes an issue by the end of this race.
It should, and we probably could see a lot more slickness as a result of the way the dynamic sky is here, especially with the new iRacing weather system that they implemented. It not only just added rain to the equation, but it added a more dynamic cloud system and weather system overall with temperatures and all that. You can really customize it to your benefit. But you're right, a little bit of a later start. We are going to double these cars up and get a restart here at lap 5 of 100. There are some drivers taking a turn down pit road, Tyler Murray being one of them. Will enter pit road alongside, that's the 76 of Tony Kibbett. There are the 3 drivers with the most damage from that accident. Craig Rowe in the 5 car, and making just one of his first several starts here in this series. Lounslager might be out of this completely already. And then Jaden Porter, who has rejoined the field from 22nd. Eric Schaefer has also rejoined the pack, and he's back in 23rd. Man, what a start.
Look at that inside. Look at that inside rows. Rows 2 and 3. That's their top 2 in the championship right there, nose to tail, with Ethan in the 3rd spot and Lawson Peel in the 5th spot. We saw Peel go 3 and 4 wide going into turn 1 on lap 1. Who's to say that knowing that's his rival right in front of him, he wouldn't try to do the same?
Moreno finished 5th, rather P6 last time we were here after starting in 2nd place. Of course, Lawson Peel the winner last time we were here, and even then the time before, back in Season 5. A lot of contentious drivers on the inside lane. Will they be as aggressive? And knowing what just happened, sort of a warning shot for these guys up at the front. As it'll be Brandon Hawken and Kyle Benson in row number 1 to roll off for the green flag restart at lap number 5. There's Moreno on the inside of row 2 with Trevor Haley in 4th place on the outside. AJ Green, your top 5 position. Lawson Peel back in 6th place. And Kevin D'Elia. You've got Curtis Kelly, Brady Cox, Adam Alashire for the rest of your top 10. A chaotic start here from Pocono Raceway. We'll see if we get some cleaner laps logged in, as Brandon Hawken will bring the field out of turn 4. Pace car will make the entry to pit road for just the 2nd time tonight. There's a look at Porter and Schaefer at the very back of this line. Can they recover after an early problem? Green flag here. Chase back to turn 1.
And that was a good enough start for Moreno to get side by side with Benson. At least at the moment has the nose in front and actually gets clear. And Lawson Peel's looking to try and get to his inside. Won't get to the inside of the 21, but he's trying to see if he can get a nose in there against Kyle Benson to race him for that 3rd spot. As the field works their way off of turn number 1, still clean. Peel has to settle back in line, and he moves up to 4th in front of Trevor Haley.
You talk about strategy conducive here at Pocono Raceway, but something you always have to keep in mind is the draft. These cars really aren't as aerodynamically sensitive as, let's say, the next-gen cars we ran last season and the seasons before that, but you still want to stay in line, make sure you get the draft off the car in front of you, and make sure you do not get freight trained. A smart decision by Peel to shut off the run by Trevor Haley and at least hold on to 4th place. There's a look at Moreno as he rides out of turn 3. A look on board as Benson hounds right behind him. And the gap up to Brandon Hawkins, settling at about half a second. Back to turn 1, lap 6 underway here from Pocono. And everybody has singled out quite quickly. I guess they understood that they did not want any part of the chaos. They did not want it to add here early in this race. A bit of side-by-side action really muzzled here early. Everyone single file back out of turn 1.
You're really going to see a lot of single file here, just the way the racetrack itself works. And when you get side by side, you just lose a lot of time, especially in turn 2, that tunnel turn. You're really going to lose a lot of time if you go side by side. So depending how far ahead the car trying to make the pass is, you probably will rather concede that position than try to fight it. You just lose a lot of time, and you want to be single file on the straightaway to give the car in front of you a push and get that draft. You see Benson actually tag the wall off of turn 3 there. That might give Lawson Peel an incentive, but just like as I mentioned, you lose so much time going side by side. You'd rather just stay behind and give the car a push and just ride in that train, maybe save a little fuel while you can. It's incredible how much fuel you can save on these straightaways with how little throttle you can use when you're in a draft like this, and it won't affect the strategy too much, at least right now it won't, but any fuel you can save to make that pit stop time shorter, especially at the end of the race, could be beneficial.
So look at Adam Alishire, and while you were talking about just letting drivers go, it's because you lose that advantage. Well, Alishire did that to his Skybox Racing teammate, Ryan Pandiscio, who got a bit of the outside wall at the exit of turn 3. Alishire thought about it, but just hung back and decided to stay in the draft with his teammate. Alishire, the Daytona winner from earlier this season, still one of those 14 playoff competitors, and goes into this race 78 points away from the standings leader in Lawson Peel. So for now, mathematically, Alishire is out of championship contention, but still trying to claw for whatever he can. His closest driver in points is going to be Greg Hanslogger, ahead by 6. That will help Alishire, and he should gain that spot just because what happened to Alishire earlier on in this race. Probably will not expect that 13 car to continue. This is about the closest we've seen the mid-pack, other than that opening restart. Everyone, again, hanging single file. All the while, Brandon Hawken has slowly pulled away from everyone else. He has opened this gap up to about a second to Ethan Fonseca Moreno.
We've seen Brandon Hawken be fast in every race he's been, and he's been able to lead a lot of laps in every single one of his starts. And at the oval that races most like a road course, it doesn't surprise me to see him pulling this gap early on, but how much is him running his own pace versus everybody else just trying to save a little bit of tire underneath them for this long run? We've seen Pocono be notorious for long runs in the past, so with that early caution, maybe these guys settling in, they want to see if they can get their cars ready for a long run. You see just in front of that 98 is the 3 car. He's getting ready to get a lap down from that crash damage he had earlier. And there you see Eric Schaefer, who was trying to see if he can hope to close in on Brandon Banks for that 5th position. But after that accident, it's really going to do him no justice.
One of 3 Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets to finish in the top 10. Last time we were here, after starting 10th, Schaefer was able to move his way up to 5th, but because of what's happened, he's a lap down already and might just go 2. Really tough for Schaefer early on, who last week at Dover, Francisco, was aggressive, trying to either get the race win or have a really good finishing position just so he can at least get back in the game. Sonoma was a pretty big hit just because he didn't make the race, and a lot of other drivers got points that he could have easily earned if he was there, but he was on a cruise ship, so did not get to the Pocono, or the Sonoma race rather. But here at Pocono, already behind the 8 ball, and this could be, Francisco, we've sort of mentioned it a bit, the make or break race, right? What's the race to where you're already too far gone from championship eligibility? Schaefer might just be teetering on that edge. He sits there about to be 2 laps down from Brandon Hawken, who's just running nicely right behind him, and really no pressure from the 98 from everyone else. And he won last time we were at Sonoma, the race that Schaefer missed.
But you mentioned it there for a moment, how this is the make or break race, and what it comes down to is this: as once you get to Phoenix, the picture you're trying to paint is a lot clearer, because there's only one or the other, and that's Phoenix and Homestead. So with 1 or 2 chances to make anything happen, you start to realize, okay, it's either this or that. And really, with so many races left before tonight's race, it was, okay, if this happens, then you have this many opportunities to try and get this happen. And if anybody who knows how probability and statistics works, you know that a bunch of different probabilities can happen with so many races, so many laps, and so many drivers. But as you start eliminating the races more than anything, it really paints the picture. So as you start to narrow down the amount of races, everything becomes a lot more clearer. The goals for these drivers becomes a lot clearer. So that's why these guys right now, like Kyle Benson, like Ethan Fonseca, you see them there second and third. Yes, they're ahead of Lawson Peel, and that's the way they're running. They won't gain that much on him, but anything is good right now, especially as we move to Phoenix and Homestead. If they can have the gap underneath single digits for the last 2 races, that's more than enough to have it manageable for the last 2 events of the year, because it's all about just gaining that little bit to get ever so closer. You just want to go into Homestead with a shot. You want to give yourself an opportunity, if that's all, and that's all you really need. You see the 21 way up the racetrack there in turn 1. It's actually going to lose a bit of ground to the 38, but like I mentioned before, unless you have that big of a run, you don't really want to risk going side by side. So Benson's going to tuck in behind him and push him down this straightaway for the advantage of just saving a little bit of fuel and not losing time. Schaefer had just gotten passed by these 2, but he's going to let his teammate go now. Lawson Peel's just a little bit behind these 2.
Lawson Peel would love to have these 2 go side by side for second, giving him only the ample opportunity to get right into the mix of things. And there he is going side by side with his teammate. It's not going to really be an easy approach out of turn 3 to get around the 3 cars. Sideways is Newbraw. Way down the racetrack. He's going to be able to save it. That was a touch to the outside wall for the 6 car. He holds on to it and drops back to 15th.
Saw the car dart immediately to the right side of the screen, to the inside of the racetrack. Let's see exactly what happened here. You see the front end starts to go away from it, hits the wall. It's about to bounce loose, and look at how that right front just flipped it off. And the amount of right input he was putting into that race car to keep it from hitting that inside wall. That was a fantastic save from Michael Newbraw, and really didn't even have to go much to that checkered apron that much. So it goes to show just how aggressively he was trying to keep it on the racetrack. But here we have a pass for P2 on the racetrack. That is now Kyle Benson, who's moved up into the 2nd place. It happened sometime in turn 1. You saw Benson get a decent enough run, went to the inside of the 21, and I think Ethan Fonseca goes high, tries to give it to the 38. That way they don't lose a lot of time to Lawson Peel. And that goes back to what I was saying. If a car gets to your inside or your outside and they have the kind of speed and momentum, you're much better off giving them that position and just trying to keep up with some draft than trying to fight them off and bring up anybody else.
We know that Moreno was experimenting a bit with that outside lane, but Benson, give him all the credit for that pass, using it nicely, the lane on the inside, and at the moment the faster car than Moreno. But if you're Ethan, you really have to watch for the car behind you. No worries about Benson. You guys are separated by 1 point. If you at least keep Benson in check, keep him right in front of you, you should be okay. But Lawson is really the biggest concern. And you were talking about how the painted picture turns a little more clearer, and you sort of get the storylines of who's who, who's in contention, and who's not. I mean, like you said, everything revolves around beating Lawson Peel, and that could feel a little demoralizing sometimes as a driver, because you're always so used to being so close but never being able to properly beat the 12 car. And how many races have we seen to where Benson's had a good one, Ethan's had a good one, and then Lawson Peel either does okay-ish or doesn't have the best race, and all of a sudden it goes to single digits, and in the race after where we anticipate that there could be a change in the points lead, it just stays the same. So the more things change, the more things stay the same. And I can imagine for Benson and Ethan, obviously the goal is to stay close as they can to Peel going into Homestead, but you would like to have the points lead that gives you a little more momentum, and it could be a little frustrating if you're not able to get around Peel in the standings, even though you have ample opportunity to.
And you think about it for Ethan Fonseca, Kenneth, he had that opportunity last week. We documented what happened with the post-race penalties, but you also think back to the Rockingham Raceway when he was in that battle for the win in the closing stages with Lawson Peel, had an opportunity to make the pass on the inside, makes contact with Lawson Peel, loses 7 positions in those closing laps, and you couple that with just last week, that's 15 or more points that 21 car easily lost, and that's what makes the difference in the standings right now. So that's what we talked about even all the way back at Chicagoland, is that mistakes like that accumulate, especially in this format, and we're seeing the outcome of that at this very moment as the 21 and 12 do battle on the racetrack right now.
We talk about the fact of being outside of the point standings and trying to make a difference to be in contention. That was Brandon Banks, who's trying to settle himself amongst the trio of Skybox Racing Toyota Supras. Ryan Pandicio ahead of him, Kevin D'Elia there, and Adam Alshire leading that group. 2 of those Skybox competitors running in the playoffs. And going into this race, Brandon Banks is that 5th place driver in standings, 49 points out of Lawson Peel, his teammate. So tonight could be the make or break deal for Brandon Banks. He does have to tread the waters quite carefully, though, around the other playoff competitors, because it is getting pretty dicey back there. As here's a look from Peel. He watches on as Moreno holds the position in front. The main goal for the 21, do not let this 12 car by any means necessary.
Yeah, it's getting down to the nitty gritty, and you really have to play a lot of defense here. And if you're the 21 or the 38 for that matter, at one of these two, you're gonna have to make sure that you hold up this 12 car, at least for your own sake. That's really the goal. If Ethan is unable to do that, then Benson's gonna try the same thing for his own sake. And they're not trying to necessarily help each other, but in helping each other, or in trying to hold up the 12 car, they help each other. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and in this case, Ethan and Fonseca and Benson, they have to kind of work together to keep the 12 car at bay to give themselves a chance at this championship. So right now, with this running order, it just makes it very interesting for Peel, because he knows that the two cars that are going to make it hardest to pass on the racetrack are those two in front of him as he looks to the inside of the 21.
There he goes, into turn 1 on the exit, cannot find the momentum to get around Moreno, but surely he's setting that pass up. We know this 21 has been flirting with higher lanes, especially in turn 1, and it did not help in the battle against Benson. Doesn't want to be a negative when he fights against Peel, who continues to get ever so close to this 21 machine. These two Camaros doing battle. Meanwhile, Brandon Hawken has spent a nice time, about a second and a half, away from everyone else and any other type of company. He's been chilling up front 18 laps in. We know that early yellow sort of ruined the rhythm a little bit, but Hawken not phased at all, searching for what's going to be his 5th win in his 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series career. And, you know, we talk about the point standings and how Benson, Moreno, and Peel are at the utmost importance for who could be the man heading into Homestead. Well, Brandon Hawken, who's not in the playoffs, if he continues to run laps up front, that's more points that is lost for everyone else. We know we talk about that at Sonoma, and we always have that ever-growing threat of Brandon Hawken winning races while the playoffs continue to push forward. You know, Hawken doesn't care. He's just running his races and doing a great job. But for everyone else, lost points. For Benson, I can imagine he'd love if he was in the race lead, but knowing that Brandon Hawken is ahead of him, it's sort of a little bit of a significant scenario there to where there could be a lot of lost points for laps led and for the race win if it comes down to the end.
Really, more than anything, it's the win statistic and the laps led category. Otherwise, you're still the same number of positions ahead of that 12 car, which is the biggest deal. As you see contact side to side there between Michel, and he's going to make door-to-door contact again down the straightaway with the 63. Was not a fan of what happened off of turn 3, and you saw him as they went past the front straightaway. The 25 gave him a little bit of a door check getting into the straightaway, and he's going to lose that spot to Ryan Pandiscio. So already early on in this race, tempers flaring.
They got really chippy there. A reminder, these are two Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets in tandem. Michel up front, Brandon Banks behind. Last thing that Banks needs is a crash right in front of him involving not only his teammate, but involving another playoff driver that could careen back up the track into him. A bit of the contact. Michel is able to gather this one together. Gonna stay under green for now. Here's a battle for 14th place. This is CJ Munier under fire from Patrick Thompson, was one of those that did not go for a qualifying time earlier tonight. So Thompson had to run this one pretty far back in this field, and still at this moment trying to gather himself up and build some sort of a rhythm as Michel charges back to the inside of Pandiscio in the fight for a top 10 spot. They're going to bang doors again. Up the track they go. Michel slides on through in a physical way. He bullied Pandiscio out of the corner, and here comes Banks to the inside.
Yeah, you could tell that they're not happy with each other, and now the 63s has his front bumper on the rear bumper of the 25 as they go into the tunnel turn. Banks is able to get on by. There goes Pandiscio, misses the rear bumper of the 25, and he's going to lose ground. So for now, those two are going to have a little bit of a break. The referee, being the racetrack, decides to break it up.
How much heat is going to be surrounding Daniel Michel at the end of this season, because we know what happened at Sonoma. All of the frustrations that Ethan had was the root of that cause was Daniel Michel, the driver in front, holding the 21 up in his eyes, and then also goes by. They all make contact, and around goes Moreno in turn 11. And now here with Pandiscio, more chippiness between himself and a playoff driver. We were almost 3 wide right behind this group. Patrick Thompson eyeing in on 3 wide action versus Munier and D'Elia going door to door for 14.
You see the run here off of the corner to follow D'Elia through, and that's where the draft really matters. is, especially on the outside lane, you want to stay closer to the wall so you can get that draft and get a pull down the straightaway. Here in the corner, when you're side by side, you lose a lot of time, but here off to the corner, Patrick Thompson's going to get that advantage and get that draft, and it should clear him easily over CJ Munier, and you see exactly that happen. But here, looking back at the top 4, Ethan is starting to close the gap back up on Benson. It looks like Benson had a bad turn 3 because look how much the 21's gaining down the front straightaway. He's going to look to the inside, trying to take P2 back late in this run, and he's going to get it in the center of the corner. He's going to slide up just a little bit. Benson trying to look back low to see if he can get some kind of an advantage, but it's not big enough. The 21 moves back up to P2 towards the late portion of this run with green flag pit stops in about 5 to 10 laps.
Moreno got his best foot forward and took that lunge into turn 1, and now Benson looking for the strike back into the tunnel turn. Moreno's going to be forced up high. Benson gets the left side tires on the apron. Not good enough to clear car number 21, and in the purview is Lawson Peel, who dives on the inside. This is going to be for 3rd place. Peel down low into the sweeping turn 3. He has the advantage. Benson sticks with him, goes up to the outside wall, and Peel's going to make the spot up, and he moves into 3rd, at least for the moment.
Now, that was a tight squeeze, but Benson with the outside and the draft is going to get back around the 12, or at least make it hard on the 12. They'll be side by side going into turn 1, and this is what I was talking about. Benson wants to fight this. This is the battle for the championship position, or at least potentially, and the 12 car is going to get by here in turn 1. Benson once again in the same situation as he was the previous lap, though Lawson Peel's going to have some sort of draft off of the 21, so Benson won't have a chance into the tunnel turn again. But that all happened a lap ago when he got that 4 exit off the tunnel turn and gave Lawson Peel the inside into turn 3. So that's really what helped the 3 car move up in, or the 12 car move back up into 3rd place. So Benson down to 4th in a space of 2 laps before these green flag pit stops. And really the 21 was hoping that the 38 could hold him off just that little bit better to have that buffer. But now they're back together on the racetrack, but now for 2nd instead of 3rd.
And that tells you, Francisco, how much of an impact that decision to go for the pass makes on the entire scenario in this race. Had Benson not gone back to the inside on Moreno, we could have been talking about Benson still holding on to 3rd. But in the meanwhile, Peel is able to move up a spot, and we're looking at side-by-side action right behind this trio. Trevor Haley, AJ Green going at it. Pair of playoff runners, although it seems as though both of them are pretty much out of championship contention. Haley's 78 points back, and 4 points behind him is that, of course, 48 car of AJ Green, who had a really strugglesome first several rounds in these 4-wide racing playoffs. He's still looking to recuperate somewhat, but at this point it's about stopping the hemorrhaging as he rolls into 5th. These two have been basically nose to tail all race long. It's up to how they might be able to change the scenario. There's been Benson with a last-second decision to enter pit road.
And it's going to be a 3-stop today if it goes green, or if the strategy works out enough. The earlier you commit to it, the earlier you can use fresh tires. And I think Alishire followed him suit just a little bit further back. So Kyle Benson, the first one towards the front of the field to strike, might not be enough for the race lead, but certainly should jump his way up into 2nd with this move. We'll see just how much later do the other 2 respond. There's Michael Newbra, who's in as well. And if we look halfway across the racetrack, we'll see what Brandon Hawken, Ethan Fonseca, and Lawson Peel decide to do. There's Hawken, who works his way off the tunnel turn into turn 3 now. We'll see if he decides to put on the brakes here, going into turn 3, doing his normal line, and really braking for pit road. Comes off the corner. You try to hang low. Doesn't really try to do so here as he swings wide to the wall. He'll stay out. Ethan Fonseca and Lawson Peel will stay out as well. So they're extending right now. If the caution were to come out right now, it would actually really help Kyle Benson because he doesn't lose a lap in the process. He'll stay on the lead lap and he'll have his pit stop completed. So that's the advantage of pitting early. You get the service done. So ideally, whenever somebody makes a pit stop like this and they to try and undercut, you want the caution to come out immediately. You just pitted. You're the furthest up the race in the running order as far as those who's pitted. If the caution comes out, you get to stay out or take fuel only, and that way you get the track position, and those guys around you lose track position, have to work their way past these guys. So that's the big gain and the pros and cons of trying the undercuts. You actually don't lose a lap here, so you can, if the caution comes out, it really helps you. But if you stay out, you can have the next run with slightly better tires, but we'll see just how much of an impact that makes. Brandon Hawkins going to make his way in this time. You saw how low he was able to stay. Ethan Fonseca and Lawson Peel are going to follow him through. So Hawkins with a safe entry. Ethan Fonseca, much better entry this time compared to Dover. And there's Lawson Peel who's going to follow him in. So the top 3 on the racetrack into the pit lane. AJ Green's going to follow all of them, so most of the front runners are actually all coming in now.
The only driver to stay out as far as the first guy is going to be Daniel Michel, so he's going to stay out an extra lap. So is Patrick Thompson, and so is Brandon Banks. So 2 playoff drivers going to stay out the extra lap, hoping that it could give them some sort of advantage. And we know with the track as big as Pocono, distance is key. As long as you can have a good amount of distance from yourself and everyone else, you might have a good shot depending on whether you overcut or undercut the strategy. There goes your top 3 out of pit road. Hawkin, Moreno, and Peel without a hitch. No pit road penalties for either of them. The good
Here
fight
comes
behind
Benson.
them between Haley and AJ Green. And then Kyle Benson moving through in turn 1. He's got the net race lead for now. Sits in P6.
And that's with the power of the undercut. He pitted just about 2-3 laps earlier than Brandon Hawkin, and you see the difference those 3 laps will make, just how much ground he was able to gain. He's probably going to lose a little bit now, not a whole lot, but I would say in about 5 to 10 laps or so, I would expect that 98 to be all over the 38. And you see Brandon Banks is going to make his way onto the pit lane. And I would say crucially for Ethan Kenneth, he was a clean stop for him. He was able to get in effectively, get off effectively, and still ahead of the 12 car. So for his sake, that was a good pit stop sequence compared to his first pit stop sequence back at Dover.
And there's an onboard look from Kyle Benson in his 38 machine. Finished back in the top 25 the last time we were here at Pocono Raceway in the season, after starting as high as the top 3 in the podium spot. So Benson, of course, not really paying attention to past history here at Pocono, especially when you concern the first time we were with it, the Xfinity cars in Season 6, but a good start tonight. Runs 4th and still waiting for Daniel Michel, Patrick Thompson, and Tyler Murray to hit pit road. Will now make it 2. Thompson is going to stay out the extra lap. Tyler Murray, I believe, is going to get by as well. So make it only 2 cars that are left to play for pit road before we get Kyle Benson up in the front. But of course, the biggest concern is going to be that 98 car behind. And then you see the gap back to Moreno, the gap back to Lawson Peel. I think this undercut strategy, Francisco, really worked for Benson. Maybe if Hawkin gets around, it's not the biggest deal, but just having more of a distance between yourself, Moreno, and Peel, it's going to give you so much more relaxation as opposed to being nose to tail with him like he has been all race.
The biggest attempt in this strategy is really to gain the track position in case a caution comes out, because even if the yellow were to come out now, I don't know if everybody would come back in at this stage or not, but certainly it gives them track position. And on a restart, when the tires go through a heat cycle or multiple heat cycles, it really takes away that disadvantage you have from being the one undercutting. As Patrick Thompson makes his way into the pit lane, this will cycle out Kyle Benson to the race lead with Tyler Murray as well pulling his way through. So the 38 does not lead this current lap, but if he comes back around in the race lead, he'll get his first lap lead of the day, which gives him a bonus point, a crucial bonus point. They all become crucial at this point of the season. Benson hoping that he can hold off the 98 at least until they get back to the start-finish line.
He might have his hands full as Brandon Hawkin closes it down to only 0.3 of a second. In the last time by, Hawkin was way faster by about 0.6 of a second. 52.9 for Hawkin, a 53.5 for Benson the last time they crossed the start-finish line, and it's only 2 laps of difference. You can also argue that Benson isn't pushing his set of Goodyear Eagles. He knows the undercut means he's going to be on older tires at some point, and it could obviously play a difference, so he's just at least looking to save as much tire as possible, while Hawkin really doesn't mind at all. He's just pushing the envelope, making sure that he can at least hold on to the race lead and go for another victory. The exit of turn 3, the run to the start-finish line, the entry to turn 1. Hawkin gets the run. He goes to the inside. Hawkin to the point, 32 laps in.
And you were able to see just how early Benson lifted, not really fighting that position. That's not his battle, but he did lead his lap, which is going to give him an extra point in this race. At this point now, he's going back to try and settle in and keep running the lap times he's running to see if he can delete some of the disadvantage he has from having pitted so early. Not so much against this 98, but against the 21 and the 12 behind him. Right now, Ethan Fonseca about 3/4 of a second ahead of Lawson Peel, so they're not too far ahead, but all of them are 3 seconds behind the race leader.
We'll look on board with Benson as he comes out of turn 3. Let's listen in to the lap from the 38.
if this was the older version of Pocono, Kenneth, you'd be hearing a lot more shifting, or if this was simply a different gearing that they were running, because we heard all the way around the racetrack, no shifting when Pocono's notorious for it, but the gear ratios that they run in the fixed versions of these race cars isn't low enough to offer that to make it really possible or quick enough to do so. But no shifting there going on, not in these race cars. But what a lap there from Kyle Benson to give us that on board of what it sounds like to go around this Pocono Raceway.
And you can tell from Benson's lap that he's taking it safely. He's not really pushing the car all too much. Saw how much conservative space he was giving between his race car and that outside wall in turn 1. You'd see a lot of drivers go right up near that outside wall on the edge of smacking it, but just right there enough to not get into the wall fully, which used to be a boilerplate wall back when this track was new in its early stages. Now, of course, it's normal, safer barriers and walls like we're accustomed to seeing at basically all NASCAR tracks. But for Benson, not really pushing it all too much, hence the slower lap time, and he is running slower times than Moreno and Peel. They're both starting to close in on car number 38. But again, the end attempt to save as much tire as possible and outlive everyone else on this run. That seems to be the method, Francisco, isn't it?
It could, and at least right now he's still about 2 seconds ahead of the 21. When the pit stops were made, he was about not quite a second off of the two cars, but he was basically close enough to them. So if by the end of the run, if he's anywhere near that area, it works out for him. So I guess that's his goal, is see where does he end up at the end of this run and use that to determine the strategy. Look how low in turn 3 that 21 car got. He went all the way down to the rumble strips to try and get the car to turn.
Looking to get as much grip as possible. 36 laps in from the virtual Pocono Raceway. Right now, this race is all Brandon Hawkins at the head of the field. We'll take a short break and be right back with more coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs from Pocono.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to the virtual Pocono Raceway. Coverage of the 4Wide Racing TJ's Team Series playoffs is brought to you by iRacing. To get your sim racing career started today, visit iRacing.com. By TJ's Team, To learn more about the Foundation's mission to end pediatric cancer, you can go to wearmorethancape.org. And by Paul's Setup Shop. Well, there's a look at the man of the hour here from Pocono Raceway. Brandon Hawken has led a majority of this race and continues to man the action 39 laps in out of the 100 set to run here from the Tricky Triangle. And welcome back to our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network, where alongside Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno. I don't think anyone is paying much attention to Brandon Hawken. You have to give him credit for how fast he is, but our biggest storyline tonight has been the battle between the three titans in the playoff standings. Kyle Benson, who runs second right now, Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who runs third, and Lawson Peel back in fourth place. Benson had an undercut strategy on the first round of green flag stops and now sits only half a second away from Moreno getting by him for second. This is going to get fun between these two and might invite Lawson Peel to the party as well.
Lawson Peel's lost a little bit of time to the 21 car on this run, just probably the tires not really coping with the race car right now, but the 21 certainly is closing in on the 38, and if he can get past Kyle Benson, again, it's a gap that it offers himself to Lawson Peel to really help in the point situation. And while yes, those two that you're looking at right now on the screen were separated by 1 point going into this race, and Benson having leading the lap, it's going to help. Again, both of them, all right, now that's for second, so at the end of the day, in a way, it won't matter. It only matters if they're able to catch up to Lawson Peel. Right now, as it stands, they're just battling for second in the standings. You don't truly ignore it. You store it somewhere, and the caution flag is going to come out just before the pass is made. So that's really going to help Kyle Benson with track position. Huge damage to the 91 of Adam Alishire, who's gotten into the wall. And looks like another car involved because you see some smoke. He's going to take it straight to the garage. So the 91 of Alishire most likely with his evening done. See some more damage on Christopher Bishop. We'll get a look here and see exactly what happened. And like I said, Kenneth, this really helps the 38 and his track position because he had just gotten past, or was about to get past with the older tires. And there's the 78 just behind Adam Alishire. They go into turn 3 and whoa, it looks like the 78 had to brake a lot there going into the corner because it broke loose for a brief second, drives up on the 91. Gets into the back of Alishire and spins him to the inside of the racetrack and hits the pit barrels.
That is the worst place to go sideways here at Pocono, right off the final corner and in that straight trajectory towards those pit road barrels. So there's a look at Cox giving the impact to Alishire. And then the second bit of contact right here, sending this 91 to the inside and hard into the pit road attenuating barrels. As soon as that checkered pattern starts on the inside apron, Alishire absolutely torn up. And that seems to be the only car in trouble. We looked at Christopher Bishop, who had some damage, but that seemed to be from earlier. And then for Adam Alishire, just takes his car directly to the garage. His night is over from Pocono Raceway. A huge hit that obviously will continue to take Alishire out of championship contention. He goes into this race 78 points away from the standings leader in Lawson Peel. So tonight will just be another sour end to the race with only 2 events remaining after this one. And there's a look at Jaden Porter, Francisco, who we haven't talked about much, but he is a lap down in 18th. Remember all that damage he picked up on the opening lap crash? He's just trying to keep his foot in it and was on the lead lap for a good while right before this caution came out. And as the field enters pit road, this could be the chance for Porter to get his lap back, although he will be at a significant disadvantage. And here is everyone else on pit road.
The timing of this caution is interesting to say the least, Kenneth. It is when they cross the line, it'll be exactly 58 laps to go. That's a stretch on trying to make it on one more pit stop from here. But we've seen guys try that in the past, so wouldn't put it past somebody from trying that strategy here between now and the checkered flag as everybody gets into their pit stall. Kyle Benson with a slide into the pit lane is going to be very close to the pit wad. Overshot the pit box, has to go over and has to reverse into it again. A nightmare stop for the 38.
This is going to be huge for Benson. Finally gets it in the stall. There's Hawken out. Moreno as well in the fight with Lawson Peel. A nightmare entrance to pit lane for Kyle Benson. Oh my goodness.
That is going to cost them a lot of track position there, Kenneth. He was running second before the pit stops, and Looks like a lot of rear brake in the 38 because it looks like the rear end slid away from him as they go into the pit box. He's following your race leader. He has pit stall number 2 from having qualified second. So he's basically following this 98 in. And listen here. There's the wheel hop.
Out.
Yeah, there's the wheel hop. And that happens a lot, especially when you have rear brakes. You're trying to put the throttle in to balance out the RPMs and the rear steps out. Is too close to the pit wall, is too far ahead, has to back up, go forwards, back up again just to create the space to clear that left side. And that results in a lot of track position loss. He's going to fall outside of the top 15 with that one. Honestly, Kenneth, if I were him being in this situation now, I would go down pit lane with the 1 to green because, like I mentioned, being so close to being able to make this on one stop, you have nothing to lose at this point. You just lost the track position. May as well come back in with 1 to green and top it off and give yourself the best opportunity to have as much fuel as possible to try that one-stop strategy.
That'd be a good call, but we'll see if he does at the exit of turn 3, hanging that car to the inside lane, and he is not coming in this time, so he will stay out with that mistake. 44 laps in, we are ready to double the field up and get this one ready again. Possibly the worst pit stop for Kyle Benson that we've seen about all season long. As the car steps out, and even then, Francisco, a worse placement once he overshot, because many times we've seen drivers go over the line, but more often than not, they just have to kick it into reverse and go a little backwards before they can be actually in their pit box to get the service. It wastes them time, but that was probably the worst placement for the car to slide the way it did, hang right up against that inside pit wall, and then have to just completely change the way his car was angled to even get a shot at pit road service happening to him. Benson is going to cycle back out in 14th place. A nightmarish event down pit road for Kyle Benson. Leaves Moreno and Peel as the 2 to fight for the top spot in the standings, 44 laps in.
When we take the green, it will be 56 laps to go. Give or take, that's about 26 lap a run. These guys earlier in this stint, I believe, when they made their first green flag pit stop, even with the help of the caution laps, went about 28 at the maximum. So it's possible. We find ourselves here in a fuel situation again, but I think the most important thing that we have to get through first is this restart. And what's going to be interesting is with Hawken being the leader, that favors the 12 car getting that better launch, being able to follow the 98 through and seeing when he's able to go just a lot better. Puts the 21 at a slight disadvantage on the outside. Get your popcorn ready. We're about to have the top 2 in points go side by side into turn 1.
It's all about how Brandon Hawken launches off the final corner as soon as that pace car makes the left. It does. Hawken on discretion to bring everyone else back under green. It's out here from Pocono. There's Lawson Peel with a run down the straightaway entering turn 1. We are door to door for second between Moreno and Peel.
Ethan has slightly better help from Trevor Haley, which gives him the nose. Peel's going to try the bottom here. Holding a nose to the inside. Ethan Fonseca should get the run off the corner. Peel gets sideways just barely, but he's holding tough on the bottom. Here comes Trevor Haley to try and help his fellow rookie. Lawson Peel's not going to give up. They're going to be side by side going into the tunnel.
It's not over yet. Moreno has to hold up the outside without getting into the wall. At the exit of the corner, he's clean. Peel remains down low, and this is good for Brandon Hawken. He's able to fly away and let everyone else do the dirty work. Moreno still holding on defensively to the inside.
That's a good spot to be in right there, especially in turn 3. Just get to pinch the guy to the bottom. They get no real run off the corner. Lawson Peel's going to lose that position. And there you see the snake trail effect of trying to break that draft. Going into turn 1, Trevor Haley gets into the outside wall in the process. But what a good enough restart there by the 21 to hang on to second over Lawson Peel. Just because he's got the position doesn't mean it's over, though. That 12 car stays in the mirror.
Favorable line in turn 3 certainly helped Moreno pinch Peel down low, and you can argue the same for turn 1. A fast corner, the most banked corner at this Pocono Raceway at about 14 degrees, so you can, as the outside car, make the other one flustered on the inside. Moreno a little loose at the exit of the tunnel turn. Lawson Peel still hanging tough. Meanwhile, the battle for 4th is heating up. Brandon Banks, a race-high top 5 run. He swerves to the inside of Haley. He's got the spot.
And AJ Green almost into the back of Trevor Haley, who gets to the inside of Brandon Banks. He gets to that left rear quarter panel. These Xfinity cars don't have that big side draft effect, but AJ Green's going to get to the outside, or try to get to the outside of Haley to help Brandon Banks. But Haley, with a solid enough run on his own right, gets even with the 54 as they broke for the corner. Haley with the nose out in front, but Banks has the better line. He'll get the momentum off the corner. AJ Green is going to try to take it 3 wide. He's going to go to the inside. Banks clears Haley, so Haley's going to try to move up. Actually, no, he fights back on the middle. There'll be 3 wide for turn 2.
This will work in the tunnel turn. Green
oh my, it
out.
did.
Haley's still there. A huge scare for everyone. My heart dropped at the entry to that corner. Trevor Haley and Brandon Banks are going to stay side by side. And in the meanwhile, Peel is putting on the pressure to the 21 of Moreno. Tried an inside look into turn 3. Now the gap's going to balloon at the exit of the corner to the long front straightaway. But Peel is not giving this one up yet.
Turn 3 is so important here because it leads on to the longest straightaway of the entire schedule. A good run off of turn 3 can give you an opportunity to pass in turn 1. But Ethan Fonseca doing a good enough job. He was able to get the better of the 12 car on that long run after the green flag pit stops. Had a good enough pit entry, was able to save his tires effectively there. But now with Lawson Peel on his tail, has to kind of go at the mercy of Lawson Peel here to make sure he can keep the P2, because this is a straight battle. You see the 21 actually gets loose in the middle of the tunnel turn. Lawson Peel's going to get a run here to turn 3.
Here he goes, the entry of 3. Moreno gives him the space, but he's going to try and choke him down low. Peel's going to hold on to the spot. Will Moreno win this one? This time around, out of the final corner, washes up, and Peel still has the spot. He's going to hold back and stay in the draft. Another attempt wasted for the Mississippi native. And one thing that's very different from the last time we were here at Pocono compared to now in the playoffs is that Moreno does not have friends out there right now. Jaden Porter, who got into that lap 1 accident off the final corner, is on the lead lap, but trapped in 18th place. And the last time we were here, KBueno Racing had 4 cars in the race, 3 of them finishing inside the top 6. So Moreno has no one else to help him. It's just him and Lawson Peel, mano a mano. They have pulled away from Brandon Banks and the entire company through the top 5. While Brandon Hawken pulls away, it is a straight-up showdown between these two here in Long Pond.
The last time we were here for KBueno Racing, it was Dane Cruz and Luke Canup that flew the flag for the team on that afternoon. Ethan Fonseca had a solid 6th place finish. Right now, he's carrying the flag for the team, running in P2 and trying to see if he can hold off a champion in Lawson Peel and championship leader Lawson Peel to try and close in that gap, because right now, even though we're on lap 50 of 100 in this race, you have to hold that 12 car off if you're the 21.
Halfway home here at Pocono Raceway, Peel remains tucked right behind this 21 car of Moreno. Any little hiccup by this 21 car could open that door wide open. And it's been so tough for anyone to topple the Columbus, Mississippi native and Season 4 champ of Lawson Peel, who hasn't finished outside of the top 10 throughout the entire playoffs. His worst finish is 10th. He's been so consistent. He has a race win in the bag after Rockingham Speedway. While Moreno has one at Richmond, he's been more topsy-turvy when it comes to finishing order as opposed to Peel, who has been rock solid. These two remain 2nd and 3rd behind Hawken, who has pulled away to about a 2nd and 2/10. We'll turn back to what's exactly happening inside the top 5. A little more calm this time around. Banks is leading the charge. Kevin Dill looking to the inside of his teammate, Curtis Kelly, and there is Kyle Benson. Haven't paid much attention to him on the restart, but he's looking to the inside and still trying to gain all of that track position loss from that abysmal pit stop.
And there's Jesse Freeze, who just exited the pit lane, almost gets in front of Benson there. Benson to the inside of Curtis Kelly into the tunnel turn is going to force Kelly to have to run to the outside. But look how much time he lost to Kevin D'Elia there just by putting the nose to the inside of the 71. Has to wait, play it patient, and now he's going to have to try something different here to get past this 71. It's going to cost him time, but ultimately you feel this 38 should get the position here, and what a run there in the middle of the corner to arc it down to the bottom. He should get the spot here. He's going to be side by side, almost making contact with Curtis Kelly down the front straightaway here, but for Kyle Benson, that should put him up decently into the top 10. And there you see now still battling away with Kelly, but Kelly's going to get forced out wide there into the corner entry. Benson clears for the position, so move the 38 up to P9.
Benson methodically working making his way through the field, and one of those that is treating this like a home race. He's from Williamsport, which is in the same state, of course, as Long Pond, not exactly as close, but nonetheless, the driver out of Pennsylvania is looking to get his home racetrack win. He's doing a nice job of at least trying to recuperate from the mistake, and it's all going to be about now, Francisco, for the setup to the next green flag pit stop, and you had brought it up a little bit throughout our coverage tonight, is making it on only one stop as opposed to having to make two more in order to make it on fuel to the checkered flag. For Benson, what's the strategy? What's the mindset here as you're carving your way through the field, but still cognizant for the fact that these three up front, Hawken, Moreno, and Peel, will have the advantage on whatever strategy they choose, and Benson will have to alternate again from those guys up front.
Well, he didn't come back in to top off on fuel, which would have been very much a guarantee to make it on one more pit stop. So right now he's essentially on the same strategy as everybody else out there on the racetrack. And now he's going for the pass on Kevin D'Elia. D'Elia's going to fight it on the outside. This is for P8. Benson's going to get back into the gas and make contact with the 53. You can hear with how early he got on the throttle, he was probably going to get into the side of that 53, being very aggressive, trying to get his way through the field. And he's going to stay side by side. Off of turn 3. D'Elia's still there, but gets into the wall. And that gives Kyle Benson the spot there, Kenneth. But everybody's going to try to make it on one more pit stop. It's very close, but you can do it, and we've seen it done before, at least the number of laps you've required to make the one stop work. So I think you're going to see most of the field attempt that strategy.
As a look at Banks giving way to his teammate Daniel Michel and was going door to door with Trevor Haley. That was for 5th, right behind AJ Green. Banks, though, with not the best entry into one, so holds back. Banks, of course, like we talked about, goes into this race 5th in the standings with only one win to his resume this season. That came at Talladega Superspeedway. So he holds on to 5th. Meanwhile, the look up front, 1.7 seconds between Brandon Hawken and the second-place race car driver Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who only has 2/10 between himself and Lawson Peel. The pressure is still there, really hard to decipher how these two are going to fare by the time green flag pit stops arise. But the question I have for you, Francisco, is do you switch the strategy if you're either one of these two, or is it a same lap pit stop next time around?
It depends on which position. I mean, if I'm Ethan, I definitely want to get on pit road at least one lap before the 12 car. So I try to go as late as possible, but guarantee that I get into the pit lane before him. Certainly be the first one to pit, and if the 12 follows me, so be it. But if I want to be on the pit lane before the 12, if you go in a lap after, you're basically conceding the position and forcing yourself to have to make the pass on the racetrack. However, if you're Lawson Peel, you maybe try to undercut him. There's not much room to try that because of the fact that you're trying that one stop, so you want to go as late as you can. But if you're Lawson Peel, the earlier you can make the pit stop compared to him. We saw what Kyle Benson was able to do in that previous run. Whilst I don't think you could do it that many laps early and still get to the end, again, all you need is one lap. If you could do it just one lap, maybe pitting with 28 or 27 to go, and that 21 stays out, that could give you that position.
Look at the lunge in a turn 1 by Lawson Peel. Almost got right to the inside, and Moreno will have to deal with a lap car that is worthy of note. Eric Schaefer. When have we seen this the last time, Francisco? Moreno leading Lawson Peel with a DVR lap car in front.
It's not played well for the 21 in this postseason. But you see Eric Schaefer's probably going to get caught on the front straightaway. So if you're the 21, that's probably the best place to catch one of these cars. It's on, especially at the beginning of one of these long straightaways. We'll see. Schaefer has enough pace in the car, even with all the damage, that he won't get caught for now. You see him trying to do his best, but they'll stay battling further back in the field. But oh boy, everything just continues to spice up with every ongoing lap.
Also to tell you, we have multiple cars that are DNFing tonight. Of course, Craig Lautenslager, one of them, Adam Malashire the second. We know that Brandon Gillis and Tony Kivitt are also out of this race. Same goes for Jesse Parise and Craig Rowe, who are technically in the session, although they are just on pit road getting all that damage fixed, and we should not expect them to rejoin the racetrack. And if they do, like we saw Jesse Parise did, it won't be for that long, and it won't really mean all that much. Schaefer going up into the outside wall right off of the tunnel turn. Car just stepped out and he overcorrected it into the wall. He's going to have the inside lane in turn 3. Does that affect Moreno's angle? It does a little bit. Schaefer skips through the grass. Oh my.
Tried his He tried to get his best to get out of the way, and he did a pretty decent job of getting out of the way there. Was probably on fresher tires because he saw him catching up to your race leader and just went too early. So as we go down Long Pond straightaway here, he's following Brandon Hawkins, trying to see if he can unlap himself, get one lap of his back. And listen here, he's gonna get to the throttle, gets a lot on the apron, gets loose, and it just catches and slams the outside wall. That's gonna break some suspension.
So dangerous when you get those left side tires on the indoor apron. That tunnel turn, we saw Kyle Benson do it. You really have to attack it at a certain angle, Francisco, if you want any sort of run out of the corner to not overcook the right front tire and get right up into the outside wall. And speaking of outside wall touching, there's Kyle Benson, who's looking to get by this huge pack of race cars. Not able to do so as he got a piece of the outside retaining wall. There's Jesse Priest directly in front, who has fixed all of his damage. And then more Drinking Bros Racing competition before you get to Haley, and then AJ Green, and then Daniel Micho. It gets really chippy through the mid-pack. Benson has to be really careful here.
The battle for fourth, and it's really starting with the front of Daniel Michel, who's holding up a 6-car pack behind him for P4 right now. 3 and a bit seconds, almost 4 seconds behind your top 3. So Michel trying to do his best impression of Sergio Perez and keep this P4.
That's a good reference. I like that reference.
The Minister of Defense.
Well, we know Michel is good at defense, even though it kind of gets some of the drivers behind him angry. But nonetheless, Michel's so strong. And what a run for Michel, though, late. As we've run through halfway here from Pocono Raceway, we were talking about 4th place up for grabs all night long, just between AJ Green and Trevor Haley. It appeared that those two had pulled away from everyone else. They were sort of in their own game, but because of the strategy and because of that restart after the crash with Adam Alashire, it bunched all of these guys together. And you've got now 4 playoff bannered cars that are in this single file train back to turn 1.
And he's doing a good job of holding them up, trying his best to get a good finish. We saw this happen at Sonoma when he tried the alternative strategy, and it's a lot harder at a road course just because of the pace difference, because of the way the different drivers run the racetrack. But here on an oval, you can do a better job of doing that, especially at a track like Pocono. You just place your car in at the right place at the right time, and you have good enough tires, and you can really make it hard to pass for certain cars, especially when you stack them up like this, because eventually they start racing each other.
Michel pulls ahead of AJ Green, looking for his best finish since the season opener at Auto Club Speedway. Hasn't made that many starts for the 2024 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series campaign. It's been pretty fast, but a lot of times up and down action for car number 25. Has 2 top 10s over the last 3 races, which includes Texas and, of course, that fateful Sonoma race where he got into a bit of the contact and drama with Ethan Fonseca Moreno late in the going. Also including his teammate Lawson Peel, but Michel with a top 5 run brewing as AJ Green stays in front of Trevor Haley and Brandon Banks eyeing in on a move entering the tunnel turn. And for Benson, we know that the trek through the field hasn't been the easiest, but how much harder does it get here when you've got the lap car Jesse Priest and then you have playoff competitors that probably will not give you all that much space and won't fall mercy to you?
It's a lot harder to pass as soon as you get closer up to the front. You see him trying to move that 0 car up, and the car is still tight. He's going to get into Jesse Priest. Priest is going to spin to the inside of the racetrack. Benson tried to slow down. Priest actually was able to save it. He'll go into the pit lane. You see him slow down. Obviously was speeding there, but really had no other choice of going anywhere else after that contact.
Mirror image of what happened on lap 1. Thankfully, Priest does not get the inside wall this time by, is able to collect it right at the last second. Almost gets that right rear into the wall, goes through the grass, and Priest is able to stay okay, but they make that contact and it sends Priest spinning. Benson certainly didn't want that to happen, but Priest nonetheless will take the pit stop. He is 49 laps down, back in 25th place. While we are 62 laps here from Pocono Raceway and about to get to our second round of green flag pit stops, let's take you through the field on the KBueno Racing Network, and we start with Brandon Hawkins, who has never finished outside of the top 5 in any of his 4-wide racing starts. He has 4 wins this season, his last win coming in dominant fashion at Sonoma Raceway, looking for his first ever Pocono win in this series. led 57 laps up until this point. The only other laps he hasn't led has been under pit road strategy. So it's safe to say it could be another Brandon Hawkin masterclass as he continues to pose the threat for everyone else if he makes an attempt at Season 7.
Looking back at second, it's been Ethan Fonseca Moreno for most of the afternoon, and he's been comfortable in second, has had to hold off a couple of fights from Lawson Peel, but successful to this point in the race. Ethan, after having the win taken away last week and looking at the point standings, has lost a lot of ground, and mistakes that he probably could have avoided, finds himself ahead of the 12 car who darts on his way on the pit road here with 37 laps to go. Very early, you can't get to the end of the race here, Kenneth. Is this an attempt to try and get to the end of the race on 2 stops and avoiding the saving method and just trying to gun it?
Could just be a short stop here for Lawson Peel, who, like we said earlier in the show, has never finished outside of the top 10 through the 4-wide racing playoffs. He's been basically the most consistent driver of the playoff field. He enters pit road, hasn't led a lap tonight, but has been up in the top 3 and has been always in contention. There's Trevor Haley, who also hits pit road. Third place is going to be Daniel Michel, who stays out an extra lap. And I think our eyes are not only on Brandon Hawkin and Moreno, but also on Benson and how he cycles out in the entire situation. Lawson Peel getting away from his pit stop. There he is, exiting pit lane now and getting through that blue stripe on the inside of the racetrack. He merges fine, back in 16th place.
And where's Brandon Hawkin in all of this? He's just crossed the start-finish line. So is Ethan Fonseca, who stays out and has Eric Schaefer on fresh tires behind him. Schaefer going to see if he can get past the 21. Again, he's a couple laps down, so he should get past this 21 car here. You see him pull up to the rear bumper of the 21. Should get past in the tunnel turn here, but Ethan Fonseca probably doesn't want to try the same strategy as the 12 car. Probably wants to go a couple more laps and see if he can try that one-stop strategy. It's not a bad idea. You could certainly try to make that one work as AJ Green finds himself in the pit lane and Kyle Benson does as well. So there you see those two, again, trying to follow that 12 car, and this is going to force these guys to make a second pit stop later in this race. When it is, I'm not sure, but certainly can't do it on one more, or try the one-stop strategy, unlike those who continue to stay out.
There's a look at Hawkin, who stays out the extra lap. So does Moreno. It moves Patrick Thompson in the 88 to 3rd place. He's going to stay out the extra lap, and so will Ryan Pandiccio back in 4th place, along with Brady Cox, Michael Newbraw, CJ Munier, Tyler Murray, and Craig Parks. These are a bunch of guys who have been hanging either in the mid-pack or the back of the pack, and just doing whatever they can to stay out as long as possible. Lawson Peel has cycled ahead of Trevor Haley, Kyle Benson, AJ Green, all those guys who just came down pit road. There he is getting by Jaden Porter. This is for a lead lap position, so put Peel back into the top 10. And all eyes remain on what Hawkin and Moreno do here. You know, we anticipated, Francisco, that Moreno would come on a different lap than Lawson Peel, but did we expect this type of discrepancy as here comes Hawkin, pivoting his Supra to the left. He's on the pit road.
The 21 follows him in as well. You see Hawkin braking late, so does the 21. They'll go down for pit road. So this is about 3 laps later than Lawson Peel. So a lot of these guys seem to have a lot less fuel on board than even I expected compared to their last pit stops. None of these guys can make it to the end of the race from here, so 1 pit stop is still left on all of these guys' boards. There you see Patrick Thompson going through to take the race lead. Let's watch the blend line and see just how this 12 car compares to the likes of Brandon Hawkin and Ethan Fonseca Moreno. I expect the 12 car to come out in the lead, because there you see the jacks are now just going up on the left sides of each of these guys, and there's Lawson Peel now on the front straightaway. And again, also crucial, this will get him track position on those guys, so it buys him time to potentially lead a couple of laps, which crucially the 21 has not.
And there he is, right up in front. That car up the road from the onboard look of Brandon Hawkin is Lawson Peel. That's going to be a total of 2.7 seconds, and slowly counting as Hawkin and Moreno get up through the gears. And it's going to be even more fun to watch because Jaden Porter's in the middle of all this. Smart decision, though, going to let his teammate pass on the Long Pond straightaway, the entrance to the tunnel turn. Moreno under heavy fire, though, from Brandon Banks right behind him. Both of these guys pitted about 4 laps apart. Moreno is going to get the best of the Reese's Chevrolet, and onwards he goes. Patrick Thompson hits pit road. Michael Newbraw is going to stay out. CJ Munier back in 2nd place is also going to go out the extra lap. So is Tyler Murray and Craig Parks. That concludes your top 4. Then 5th place is Brady Cox, who just hit pit road. And then here is the blend between Lawson Peel and everyone else. Pretty sizable gap to Brandon Hawken. Good stop by Peel.
But it is going to start to close now with the tire discrepancy. We saw the difference between Brandon Hawken and Kyle Benson earlier on in the race, and it's just about the same kind of difference. So I expect Brandon Hawken to close the gap on the 12 car. But what's really going to raise the eyebrows is what can the 21 do compared to the 12? That's a bigger gap. It's not as much of a advantage/disadvantage between those two cars as I would say against Brandon Hawken. So now it really gets your head scratching if you're Ethan Fonseca. What do you do to try and beat this 12 car? Because now he's gotten track position on you, and there's really a lot less options you could do now, especially as you get close in on the end of the race.
There's a look at Moreno, back in 7th.
Oh, he's sideways.
Turn 3. I don't know if that's really going to help his scenario, Francisco, there.
No, it's not. That normally does not help your situation when you get loose like that, but he still kept it under control, didn't lose too much time in the process, and he's still trying to put some decent enough laps together. You see he's closing up on the back of Christopher Bishop, who hasn't made his way onto the pit lane yet. He's going to cruise his way around the outside and get off into the Long Pond straightaway. Now he's about 4 seconds off of Lawson Peel, so he is closing that gap. The question is, when does he get up to that 12 car, and does that set off another chain of events as far as strategy? I know this one probably won't change much of anything because this is kind of expected, and that's the 98 catching up to the 12 car and eventually making this pass.
It's going to be a domino effect as soon as Peel and Moreno have to switch hands. If they do, of course. We know that a yellow could come out, but if it stays green and Moreno does get by Lawson Peel, no worries about what Brandon Hawken does from here on out. That probably could mean that Peel will come down the second time and at least ensure that he can make it to the end of this race. There he is, getting around Jaden Porter, who falls a lap down now in 18th place. So it should offer a bit more of a buffer, although Porter is going to get out of the way. Easy decision to let the 98 scoot on by, and that is the gap, sitting at only 0.5 of a second. And Ethan is another 3 seconds back. All the while, they are waiting for Michael Newbraw, CJ Munier, Tyler Murray, and Craig Parks to enter pit road. We know it probably won't be the biggest effect as here comes Newbraw in, but them staying out all of these laps might affect something if a yellow comes out. CJ and Craig enter the lane, meaning Tyler Murray will take the race lead.
And this is not going to help Lawson Peel, Kenneth, because Lawson Peel is about to get passed by Brandon Hawken here in a matter of seconds, meaning Lawson Peel will not get the points for laps led.
Big scenario there. Here's Brandon Hawken on the back end of Peel, entering turn 1.
He'll get him here off the corner. He's going to get the better run with the better tires. He's going to look to the inside, and just look at the difference there. The 98 is going to get that run off the corner. They'll be side by side going into the tunnel turn.
Now the question is, if you're Lawson Peel, do you even bother fighting Brandon Hawken? The answer probably is going to be no, because Moreno is going to be right on the back end of these two, although he remains about 3.5 seconds off of these guys. It really has not closed in. Moreno isn't making significant ground, although he was about 0.3 faster than Peel the last time by. It's up to 3.2 seconds now, but Moreno is going to hang tough. Peel lets the 98 through. That should be the cycle out for the net race lead. It's all about whether Tyler Murray comes down pit road. He is on the lane as we speak, meaning Brandon Hawken will take away the race lead with just under 30 to go from the tricky triangle. An onboard look with Moreno. He can see the two in the distance. It's all about whether he has enough time and whether the strategy pans out for him to catch up.
I think he might be able to catch up towards the latter stage of the run. The question is, do these guys go to the end of their current fuel runs? Because the fuel window is going to open in about 2 laps to be able to get to the end of the race. How early does someone try and get to the pit lane and guarantee that pit stop to stay out, get some track position, or do you run it late, again, to try and hope for a caution or try something different? I'm not sure which end of this do you want to be on. We haven't seen that many cautions tonight, especially. Oh boy. This is why I'm glad I'm not there out on the racetrack right now.
That's why it's so stressful to run here at Pocono, because the strategy always opens up like this, especially in this season. You know, there will be series out there to which you'll have a lot of cautions and you probably won't get that chance to really dive deep into strategy. But for these races, like we've seen in Season 6 earlier in the campaign, like we saw in Season 5, and even a bit in Season 4, even though that race ended under a green-white checkered scenario to where Eric Schaefer had to hold the rest of the traffic off in the final laps, strategy always plays such a significant role here, more than it does at a lot of the other tracks we visit on the schedule. And even in real life, Francisco, how many races have we seen strategy take over? I know Kyle Busch's most recent win, or one of his most recent wins at Pocono, came when he lost a gear, used strategy to get to the front to win that race.
I remember that one. It was the start of stage 3 or the final restart of the race, and he was like, there's a clip, if you go on YouTube and you rewatch that race on the official NASCAR page, as they go into turn 1 for that restart, the field's in turn 1, and Kyle Busch is all the way back at the start-finish line in 4th gear after just topping off of fuel. So that was amazing from a Kyle Busch fan standpoint, and I don't have that diecast. I certainly wish I had it, but that still goes to show just how impressive the strategy work here can be. And not to toot Kyle Busch's horn, but we saw a different side of that kind of strategy a couple years before that in 2017, where he used tires to his advantage by staying out longer, getting fresher tires towards the end of the race, and getting past all those cars, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, and Kevin Harvick, to get his first win of that season after a long winless streak. Hopefully this season, Pocono produces that same kind of result for him.
It looks like it is, though. Here at Pocono in the sim might just give us a really good entry to the start-finish line and those final laps, but I guess, yeah, a little Kyle Busch lore, why not?
Yeah, especially the wall of wins,
yeah,
if you know what I mean.
The wall of wins, yeah. Everyone knows the wall of wins. But just to tell you, in real life and in the sim, strategy always is the biggest storyline here at Pocono, especially when you get some green flag laps in. We're 25 laps away from calling this race over. The gap between Lawson, Peel, and Moreno sits at about 1.6 seconds, and it's not closing down as much as we'd anticipate, Francisco. We know the difference on tires between these two sits at 3 laps. It could be much bigger, could give the full-on advantage to Moreno at the end of this race, but it is going to get miraculously close, and each lap that Moreno closes in by such a tight margin is every lap that Peel can just stay up front and pray that either a yellow comes out to even these guys out on strategy, or it just could be the catalyst for the entire run.
Oh, Peel in the wall. Peel got the wall off turn 3, and that's the worst place to get the walls off of turn 3, because it costs you lap time and momentum all along the start-finish straight. And it's really going to hurt him. So you see the gap is closer to 1 second now between those two. 1.3 to be exact. 1.2 now. Ethan Fonseca trying to close in the gap. And if I were him, I would keep trying to close the gap. And as soon as they get to his back bumper, bring it down pit road if the 12 car hasn't brought it in. If I was Lawson Peel, the pit lane's open. Do you try this same strategy that gave you the track position?
I don't know. It might be a gutsy call between those two there. Kyle Benson getting to the inside of Trevor Haley. He remains adamant in his push through the front of the field. It really hasn't been easy, and we were also anticipating Benson to go into pit road a lot later than your leaders, but decided to be one of the earlier decision makers on the strategy side of things. So he moves into P7, eyes in on what is left through the top 5 up for grabs. Brandon Banks and AJ Green up the road, and it's now a full second between Peel and Moreno for second place with 23 laps to go. Brandon Hawken has checked out to the gap of 2.7 seconds. We know that Brandon may still have to go in for the extra stop. We know that he could still be in jeopardy of not winning this race, but our eyes stay focused on this run for the championship lead. So many times, Francisco, we have seen these two clash on the track. Many times Moreno has come up short. Can tonight be the turnaround? It may not be a change in the hands for the championship lead, but it could be enough of a dent to where Phoenix and Homestead could be the change maker in all of this.
He needs a moral victory, and if finishing in front of that 12 car is going to be the moral victory to get it to single digits, make Phoenix be a race where you can look at it and say, I can give myself a fighting chance at Homestead. And that's what I meant by making the picture clear. You start knowing where you stand in all of this and knowing what you have to do to set yourself up better. You see a couple lap cars exiting the pit lane now. They're going to have fresher tires and get in the way of this battle probably, but the 21 continues to close on the 12 car. If they stay out here on the racetrack and Ethan catches up to the Lawson Peel, I think you have to bring it down pit road and guarantee the track position on him.
Onboard look from Peel. There's the gap. Down to 0.4 of a second. The run up to turn 3. This long sweeping left-hander with the 6 degrees of banking modeled after Milwaukee Mile. This is the decision. With about 22 to go. No call by either.
Not yet. I think most of these guys are just trying to wait it out and see who's the first one that really decides to make a go at it, especially since the 21 hasn't actually made a pass attempt on the 12. But as they approach Christopher Bishop, who did exit pit road but just has a lot of damage on his race car, that kind of counteracts the effects of the damage and the tires, and it really just kind of gets into the way of the 12 car, so it's not going to be an easy pass for really either of these two. So and with the 3 car and the 0 catching up, it could spell some trouble for these guys.
Those are both fresh tire cars. Schaefer, of course, who slapped the outside wall in that tunnel turn that they just got off of. And he's all the way back in 20th, 10 laps down. We mentioned Jesse Freeze, who had the big hit to start this race, the entry turn 3 and the exit on lap number 1. He's 52 laps down in 24th. And here could be the change for position down the front straightaway. Peel sends the half block. Moreno is down there. They split Christopher Bishop, make it 3 wide into turn 1.
And here comes Eric Schaefer trying to see if he can find a way to help Lawson Peel in all of this, but he really can't, especially with those fresher tires. The 21's going to get by. Eric Schaefer trying to see if he can get a move on, and Jesse Prees is in the middle of all this.
Schaefer holds back. Jesse Prees is going to push the 12 car down the back straightaway. They all single out before they can enter the tunnel turn, and this is the change for position that might just kick off the strategy 20 laps away from the checkered flag. Peel is going to fall back. He will have a bit of the drafting help, but does he elect to take his Chevrolet down pit road, or does he hang on at least a little longer? He is fluttering the throttle at the exit of the corner. He'll stay out this lap. 20 to go. Brandon Hawken ahead by 4 seconds.
Brandon Hawken, as long as he doesn't make a mistake on pit road, most likely could go on to win this race. So really the big battle in all of this is this fight for second place between Ethan Fonseca and Lawson Peel. The longer both of them stay out on the racetrack, it's going to favor the 21. Just when does the 12 car decide to bring it to pit road if he's the first one to make the pass? We know that with every lap he's going to lose time to Ethan. The question is, how long does he wait? As there's Kyle Benson just now getting past AJ Green. So Kyle Benson has worked his way up into 5th and now is trying to eye Daniel Michel to get up to 4th to try and make a pretty decent comeback after that mistake on pit road, to try and salvage himself still with a shot for Phoenix and Homestead as well.
13 points out from Lawson Peel, and we know that the gap could grow here in the final 20 laps from Pocono Raceway. But if a strategy masterclass happens for the 38 or a caution comes out to get everyone on an even playing field, safe to say Benson still has a go at this. Brandon Banks is going to elect to pit now at lap 82. He was in the midst of the top 10.
But he was very far back from your leaders, just from the gap from your top 3 on back to Daniel Michel. After that insane job defending he was able to perform. So really this is a move to try and get a top 5 finish. We'll see just what happens out of your top 3. Brandon Hawken can really do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter too much just from how big of a lead he has. But this right here, Schaefer and Freeze are trying to help Lawson Peel in a straight line, not lose a ton of time to Ethan Fonseca by helping him have some kind of draft or physical push. And here we are on board with Lawson Peel, and this is exactly what I mean. Schaefer has nothing to lose in this race, so he's basically shoving this 12 car down every straightaway he can in an attempt to lose as little time as possible.
And such a tough task for them, because when they're on fresh tires, they can really enter the corner way harder than Peel can, and this is going to be the end of the help for Schaefer to Peel. Goes on the outside. It's all on Freeze to make this decision at the exit of turn 1. He's going to assist his teammate down the long pond straightaway. And is this a ploy, Francisco, for Eric Schaefer to potentially hold up Moreno?
It could. I wouldn't put it past it. We've seen just about everything thrown in this playoffs, but we've seen the 3 car obviously be able to hold the pace back, and he has enough pace to catch up to the 21, so we'll see. And if Ethan sees that and sees that being the case, does he decide to bring it down pit road? Again, these are legitimate questions probably that could be asked and could be going through the minds of these drivers. And Lawson Peel's actually going to bring it to pit road. So if I'm the 21, you have to bring it down pit road the very next lap.
There is the 12 car and Season 4 champ. Lawson Peel is in. Your top 2, of course, are going to stay out. Brandon Hawken is clear ahead by about 4 seconds. It's crunched down to about 3.8, but nonetheless, Hawken has full-on control. Kyle Benson, who's going to stay out this lap, is going to move up to 4th place in this wild comeback from a pit road entry. He should be able to get around Daniel Michel in these closing 17 laps. We know that everyone basically is still needing one stop. Brandon Banks and Lawson Peel, those first two to come in on strategy. Peel will cycle out in 14th place and might even be 15th as CJ Munier strolls on by and Peel rejoins in turn 1.
And the 21 does not get into the pit lane. He's going to stay out. So that's interesting. But Kyle Benson, though, will make his way into the pit lane. AJ Green does as well in hopes of trying to get past Daniel Michel. And actually, the 21 is on the pit lane, so he will bring it down pit road. And we'll see exactly what he does. It'll be 16 laps to go. And we'll have to keep an eye on the 12 car where they'll blend. The 12 car pitted one lap earlier. And we'll see just how much of a difference that makes. There's Brandon Hawken, who has stayed out. He can stay out as long as he wants. He knows exactly what he has to do to try and get to the end of the race. Has a big gap. His strategy isn't really in question. But we'll see the blend line here as the 21 is completing service. Lawson Peel's working his way down the front straightaway. And here they come. Here's the 21 reaching turn 1, and Lawson Peel's going to get in front of him.
But barely. Moreno's going to have the fresher tires and a pretty small
Only one
gap
lap, though,
between himself and Lawson Peel. So this is going to be a head-to-head fight with only one lap separating them on tires with 16 to go. Brandon Hawken enters pit road at lap 86. Daniel Michel follows suit right behind him. Patrick Thompson, lock of the brakes, but he is in without a problem. Brady Cox, Michael Newbraw, Tyler Murray, and Craig Parks, similar to the last stretch of stops, are going to need to come in, and they will push on to that overcut strategy. Here's the distance between Peel and Moreno. The fight for the potential change in the top spot of the standings.
And Peel knows that the 21 has been faster and not only has a slight tire advantage. It's not as big as he's had it in the last couple of runs, but if Ethan saves his tires good enough for the last 14 or 15 laps of this race, he can mount a charge and legitimately try and put pressure on the 12 car to get past. How aggressively does he try to get around this 12 car? We'll see when he gets up to his rear bumper.
And will they have an effect on Brandon Hawken, who's still trying to reach to full song? He's about a second and a tenth away from Lawson Peel, and Moreno gets ever so close to the 12 car. They do have a lap car in the mix. That is Jaden Porter, who is 18th, and he's let everybody by without a problem. We should expect the same for Peel and Moreno. What a tough night it's been for Jaden Porter, who told us that this was his birthday week going into Pocono Raceway. Not the
today
that he would have liked. It is today, so a happy birthday to Jaden Porter. He enters pit road, so he is not going to play an effect on the run for the race lead or second place. As a matter of fact, distance 110 to turn 1.
And whilst talking about Porter there, he's on pace to finish somewhere around the 19th position, which will effectively take away his chance at the championship as we move to Phoenix, which is unfortunate for him. It really narrows it down to 3, and these two are the ones 1 and 2 in the point standings right now, duking it out for second place. Not the win, but duking it out for second place, which could play a huge role because it's about 3 or 4 points that it could swing in either way if these swap positions. And Ethan has the run, trying to set himself up for turn 3 with lap traffic ahead.
And the points distance can grow to Kyle Benson because in his run to the lane, he lost spots that he gained with raw pace on the racetrack. With Brandon Banks and AJ Green. Outside look for Moreno. This is going to be for net P2. They are going to get by Tyler Murray. Caution flag is out though before Moreno could make the pass.
We'll see just how big of an impact that makes for the restart, as I expect most of these guys to stay out. But the crash, let's see what exactly happened. Jaden Porter was exiting the pit lane, it seems, but I don't think he was a part of the incident. Actually, he was exiting pit road.
Out of turn 1.
Not real sure what that's about. See if we can get it on board and listen exactly what happened.
Car just steps out of line. This is him merging back to the racing surface in turn 1. Car's loose from the get-go, midway through the corner. And he just loses it.
Yeah, and he was still in third gear, which is odd to me. You don't normally stay in third gear like that all the way around the corner, especially getting up to speed. You probably do end up shifting it to fourth. If you listen here, and stays in third gear the whole way around. probably why that happened.
And it looks like he doesn't even try to save the car until it's too late. Notices that the car is stepping out, able to hit the brakes before he gets to the inside wall, and thankfully doesn't get anyone else involved. But the caution flag waves with Brady Cox in the race lead. Those are 3 drivers, make it 4 actually, that have stayed out and got split by Brandon Hawken, who was cutting his way through. We were expecting Cox, Newbraw, Parks, and Murray to come down pit road, and we should still expect them to do so here on this yellow flag. But it really jumbled up the running order, and it's going to put Tyler Murray between Peel and Moreno, although we should expect that 36 car to come in.
There's going to be several cars that definitely are going to pit under this caution flag. The question is who, especially of those who already made a pit stop, because they pitted about, I would say, 5 or so laps ago. That kind of tire difference makes a matter, especially since we don't have that many cars on the lead lap. So if you were to pit, you maybe don't lose a lot of track position, but is it worth it? As you see these guys getting ready to go in, Lawson Peel's going, he's going to come in, and Ethan Fonseca will follow him.
And Brandon Hawken is going to stay out. So
let's watch what
everyone
these two
else comes
do.
in. Lawson and Ethan enter pit road on this lap. It appears everyone else behind them on the lead lap is also coming in. So Brandon Hawken, the lone car to stay out, and Kyle Benson too.
Someone's going to take 2 tires here on this pit stop, Kenneth. There's just no way someone doesn't.
Entry to pit road for Moreno and for Peel. Jacks are up on the right side for Moreno. Will they go up for Peel? A 2-tire call by AJ Green, who comes out first.
Oh boy, this was a huge opportunity. And it looks like exiting the pit lane, the battle between the 12 and the 21 is going to go to the 12 car. They'll be together on the racetrack, but it's going to come down to how much can they get through traffic. Could this been a mistake by either one to keep the track position? They'll be mired back in traffic.
This is going to be huge.
Wow.
All the while, Kyle Benson elects to hang it out. He's going to be in second place on the restart.
And why not, Kenneth? I mean, he was well of a ways back, was probably not going to get around them on speed. We'll probably have a restart inside of 9 laps to go. It's going to be hard to pass here. Maybe it won't be a shot at the win. We've seen Hawken be too dominant for that one. But if somebody who took tires here is able to get enough of a run, they might be able to challenge the 90 if it goes green those 9 laps because of the tire difference more than anything. But I don't know about those calls respectively for the 21 or the 12. I mean, considering they made the same one, someone was going to have to make a different call. And Ethan, if you notice there on the pit entry, he definitely decided last second to bring it in because he saw Lawson Peel was truthful and committed about going into pit road. It wasn't a fake, and you saw Ethan realize that in time, brought it down pit road. Both of them will take 4 tires, and they see Jesse Prees probably going to bring it back in again. But these guys are now going to be in traffic late in the race. That's not exactly an ideal position because if something happens, it's going to be right in front of you.
And the only drivers to take 2 tires on that stop was AJ Green, who got out first, a 7.4 second tenure on pit lane. And then the only other car to get a 2-tire stop was Trevor Haley, 10.2 seconds, a little longer, but it's a 2-tire call. Everyone else ahead, Michael Newbraw, Brady Cox, Patrick Thompson, although Patrick Thompson stayed out, but everyone in the midst of this, all of them, 4 tires along with your leaders. We'd expect that they could carve their way through the field in enough time, but there's still so much to decide, and more cautions could come out too, which ultimately will disrupt the rhythm for the fresh tire machines.
And not to mention the heat cycles the tires go through and all that sort of stuff that happens when you get into this situation. But I think that we have to point out the obvious, Kenneth, is that we're going to see some 3 and 4 wide action going into turn 1, and that's probably where you're going to get that caution flag. You got guys on tires, you got guys on 2 tires, and you got guys on old tires at the front of the field. Just how that clashes, we'll see. Daniel Michaud will restart 3rd. He has nothing to lose. He's trying to go for a race win. If he gets a good enough launch, we'll see just what he's willing to do back to turn 1. And then from AJ Green on backwards, it's new tires. So how aggressive they get on this restart, we'll see. And you keep an eye, crucially, on the 12 and the 21. They're going to be trying to slice their way through this field to get back up into the top 5. And just the gap that they're able to put on each other could tell a lot as far as the points lead. But if Kyle Benson's able to put a gap on themselves, it'll definitely help him in his bid to try and get to the championship lead. Inside of 10 laps to go, the pace car heads to the safety of pit road. We'll be back under the green flag. The 98 of Brandon Hawkins leads into the green flag. 9 laps to go from the tricky triangle.
There's Peel pulling the trigger at the entry to turn 1. He's 3 wide with Newbron and Brady Cox.
And the 21's trying to follow him through in contact. Newbron gets into the 21. They'll be spinning on the outside. Trevor Haley spins. Caution flag comes out.
Trevor Haley and Brandon Banks getting the short end of the stick, a duo of playoff drivers. And with
Ethan
9 to
Fonseca
go,
got a
another
piece of
caution.
damage. The 21 did get a piece of that. Might be okay, but he certainly got hit there, and you saw it. And there's the right front damage.
A wide look entering turn 1.
And you can see this. There's Lawson Peel going to the inside. Ethan Fonseca was able to squirm his way to the bottom after getting to the restarting on the top. Trying to follow Lawson Peel through. Newbron drifts up. Some slight contact with the 21, so might not be bad for Ethan Fonseca. But you see just the violent crash there between Banks and Trevor Haley. But this goes back to what I mentioned, Kenneth, that for those championship contenders, if you restart in traffic, you put yourself in this position that easily could have been a lot worse for either Peel or Fonseca in that moment.
There's that small contact as Newbron went up the track and then tags Haley. Unfortunate scenario for Haley. Just gets caught up in another crash. Brandon Banks right in the middle of all that. These are 2 drivers that have spent the majority of this race, Francisco, inside the top 10. Now have to scrap for whatever crumbs are left. Here at Pocono, a look from the 54.
And just no real else to go for Brandon Banks. You see him putting on the brakes, just trying to see if he can limit the kind of damage his car gets from being in this incident. Not too heavy. He probably will still be able to keep it going. Brandon Hawkins keeps the race lead. Kyle Benson, I think, was able to keep 2nd place. Daniel Michel stays in 3rd. You see most of the field is actually very much spread out, trying to catch up to the pace car. No, and a couple of changes through the mid portion of the field. There's Ethan Fonseca there. He's behind Lawson Peel position-wise, so they're still together, but they've moved up generally in terms of actual positions on the racetrack. So I believe we've just taken the 1 to green. Lawson Peel's in 7th, and Ethan Fonseca is in the 8th spot. So they'll line up next to each other once again for this restart, as actually we're still 2 to green. So we'll have a restart with about 5 laps to go now. AJ Green has found himself up to 4th with those 2 tires. Everybody else on 4 tires. I think Brandon Banks hopes that these cautions can come out because that'll help him in his bid for the win. But ever some more, this keeps getting more intense in terms of that battle between your top 3 in the point standings.
Like we talked about, tire advantage is going to wash away at some point. You know, there's less cars that Peel and Moreno have to charge through in order to run officially for the win. But the time is starting to run out, and we should have a restart inside 5 to go, just because we have the 2 to green signal here. Lights will be off once we cross the start-finish line, and it'll be 5 left. And if we get another caution, Francisco, that means we're in green-white checker territory.
Yeah, and that's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the last time we were in green-white checker territory,
Daytona.
And who won that race?
Kyle Benson in a photo finish. It's going to be harder to replicate that this time, though, with that 98 car. But I'll tell you what, that sun is getting real low right now.
It is, and I was about to point that out. Look at
no
this
lights.
View at the exit of turn 2. You can't see a thing. You see some drivers ahead, but that's all you get. It's a lot of glare off of that tunnel turn and entering turn 3. Might not be the biggest effect in the world, and it probably is diminished if you especially compare it to, let's say, if this was a real-life scenario, but as the sky changes and that sun continues to drop towards the horizon, it could play a big factor in this race, especially if we get those overtime restarts and we have to go longer than 100 laps. We will be able to double them up this time through. Lights will flicker off from the iRacing official pace car. We'll give you the rundown of the top 10. Brandon Hawkins, who has led a majority of this race, searching for his 5th career 4-wide racing win, while Kyle Benson looks for his 2nd win of the season, and one that could get him oh so close to the points lead heading into Phoenix. That's outside of row 1. Daniel Michel with a race-high 3rd place run at the moment, looking for his best finish since the season opener at Auto Club. Patrick Thompson looking for his best run since Darlington, where he finished 2nd. AJ Green is in 5th place underneath. Then Brady Cox is the last car before you get to Lawson Peel and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who run in row number 4, 7th and 8th. 9th place to Michael Newbraw, and 10th to the Skybox Racing Toyota Supra of Curtis Kelly. Do we expect another caution, Francisco? Yes or no?
Leaning yes, just because cautions breed cautions more than anything. With these tire differences, with just how antsy things get in the closing stages of the race, and just how close we are to the end of the season, it wouldn't put it past any of this from being able to happen. So we'll just have to see once we take the green flag. But, you know, seeing this view here that these guys face off at turn 2, you know what it reminds me of? When you're driving to Tampa in Alligator Alley and it's about 6 o'clock.
Yep.
That's what it reminds me of. Yes, it is not fun. You put up the shaders from the car, you put on your sunglasses, or in our particular cases, we have our normal pair of vision glasses that have the dark tint on them, which really come in handy for that.
Well, we are ready, nonetheless, to get this restart underway with 5 to go. And for those watching on the KBueno Racing Network, do you expect another yellow? We might just see one that could give us a chance at overtime racing as the sun continues to set in Pennsylvania. Brandon Hawken, the Canadian. Benson, the hometown driver. In row 1, pace car is down. 5 to go from Pocono.
A great launch from the 98 of Brandon Hawken. It leaves Kyle Benson and Daniel Michel to go side by side. Going back to turn 1, Lawson Peel is going to be side by side with Ethan Fonseca, who's looking to the inside of Brady Cox. They're almost 3 wide, almost contact with the 21 and the 12. They might have made some slight contact, but here we are. We're able to get through turn 1 this time. Lawson Peel's on the inside of traffic. They're trying to get their way through. Ethan Fonseca trying to squeeze on the outside. Michel makes contact with AJ Green as they stack up with Patrick Thompson now moving up into 3rd.
Green gave Michel the bump down the long pond straightaway. It sent him all sort of sideways. He's still trying to corral the race car. Lawson Peel has moved to the inside of Brady Cox. That will be for 6th place as Hawken is pulled away. Cross of the line, 4 to go. And Peel in the middle, 3 wide.
That is a dangerous move, but he makes it work, and Fonseca's trying his best to keep up with them, and he's not doing a bad enough job. It's just not as efficient as Lawson Peel, who's found himself back into the top 5.
Moreno has no choice but to push that 78 car, Brady Cox, into turn 1. He will make door-to-door contact with Green entering the first corner. Peel will wash up high. He might get into the wall. He's going to hold on to it. Could this give the momentum to Moreno?
That's hurting Moreno, because look at all the drafts as the outside. He's trying to see if he can get past the 78. Look how they're stacking up behind Lawson.
Moreno has to be oh so careful. He almost got into AJ Green. Cox is going to remain up there and make Moreno's trek to the front that much harder. Peel back up to 5th and charging in on Patrick Thompson as Brandon Hawken pulls out to 0.7 of a second, catching 3 laps to go.
And it's still not over, as Lawson Peel's now caught up to 4th, as you see some contact off of turn 3. Michael Newbraw chasing it down to the apron. Ethan's still trying to get past the 78 of Brady Cox, and he still has a shot of catching up to Lawson Peel before the race is over, especially with the traffic in front.
And this is good news for Moreno. He could be able to clear Brady Cox. He does into turn 1, leaving it mano-a-mano once again. Peel has found no headway to Patrick Thompson to make an effort for 4th place. Could pull the trigger entering turn 3, but a look on board with the San Jose, California native of Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who could get the upper hand on the season 4 champ in the final 2.5 laps and closing from Pocono. Peel opens the move up to Thompson, who's blinking in and out in turn 3.
Thompson's an ally to the 21. They're not teammates, but Patrick Thompson, a good friend of Ethan's, and look at this. He's going to force the 12 car to make that pass on the bottom. It's really going to help out Ethan Fonseca, who closes up to the back. Will he try to go 3 wide? He's looking, he's thinking about going to the inside. He's going to switch to the outside. The 12 car's trying to block. Ethan gets to the inside, some more blocking. Lawson Peel trying to his best, and he's going to dial it up to the inside. He's going to slide up in front of Patrick Thompson. Ethan Fonseca is going to get to the bottom. How much momentum does Lawson Peel lose? Here comes Ethan Fonseca to the bottom.
The 21 car down low, but he is faced with a battle against Patrick Thompson.
They're side by side on the tunnel turn.
For Lawson Peel, this is going to be for 4th place. They make contact. Peel slides up the racetrack and through the tunnel turn. Moreno up front while Hawken catches the white flag.
That's a crucial pass there, but Lawson Peel still not out of it, as Patrick Thompson's still trying to see if he can get up and make another pass. Brandon Hawkin uncontested at the front of the field for position. Lawson Peel still trying to chase down that 21, and he's still within range.
Another look on board with Moreno, who sits fourth. The white flag is out here from Pocono Raceway, and it's not about the battle for the win. It's about the battle for this spot right here between two of the top drivers in the standings. Benson runs second. He comes into this race third in the championship, 13 points back. AJ Green is going to go head-to-head with Brady Cox down the Long Pond straightaway. But up in front of the rest of the field is Brandon Hawkin, who spends another Wednesday night dominating the four-wide competition. And as he rounds out of the final corner, turn 3 for the last time on lap 100, it will be Brandon Hawkin capturing his 5th career four-wide racing TJ's Team Series win, this time from the Tricky Triangle. Checkered flag for Brandon Hawkin.
And Ethan Fonseca walks away with the 4th place finish, and Lawson Peel hangs on just barely to 5th place over Patrick Thompson. And Kyle Benson with that 2nd place finish should move himself up into P2 in the standings, Kenneth. And I fully expect all 3 of those guys to be within 10 points going into Phoenix.
What a race to the end, and it was all on strategy to give us this running order finish. Kyle Benson, a miraculous job as Moreno gets punted by Jesse Freeze. On the Long Pond straightaway, Brandon Banks is going to join the action, so Moreno won't really have a race car left to bring back to pit road. But Brandon Hawkin, another dominating night in the four-wide racing series. He's going to get his 5th win of the campaign, and did so without anyone giving him any sort of pressure. Teammates Ryan Pandicio and Kevin D'Elia sending the congratulations. Boy, Skybox had a successful first season. A lot of it coming down to the success of Brandon Hawkin, but a lot of success with Pandicio and Adam Alashire making the playoffs. But once again, the spotlight shines on Brandon Hawkin. His 5th career win. He enters Paul's Setup Shop victory lane from Pocono. I was talking to Tyler Murray earlier on tonight. We were discussing the prospects of Season 7, what was to follow. What's been a fantastic Season 6 run so far. And he told me that Brandon Hawkin probably will be that driver to dominate the field if he decides to run full-time. Ever since this 98 car has joined the fray, he has never finished outside of the top 10. And tonight, another standout victory for Hawkin. He's going to drift it through the entirety of this racetrack, just like he did at Sonoma several weeks ago. His 2nd win in the last 3 races in this series. And what a job by Hawkin. But of course, our biggest storyline is where the 3 titans of the championship will end up. Kyle Benson coming home in 2nd. Ethan Fonseca Moreno barely getting by Lawson Peel in those last laps and beats him by less than a 10th to the start-finish line. And Peel coming home 5th. But look at this. Drifting throughout Pocono, Brandon Hawkin will bring it to Paul's Setup Shop victory lane, his 5th of the season.
On the Pennsylvania sunset at that.
Beautiful, beautiful scenery here in Long Pond, and Brandon Hawkin to savor the victory once more. One of those guys always to watch for, and if he joins Season 7, boy, he will be a huge threat. But he spends his time as a non-playoff driver for now. Makes another statement win here from the virtual Pocono Raceway. Let's take a look at the full unofficial results after another fantastic race that came down to strategy after all, but it was Brandon Hawkin getting the W over everyone else in convincing fashion. Even through all the late race yellows, is able to hold on to the win by at least a 2nd over Kyle Benson. A phenomenal strategy call in hindsight, and you got to give him credit for bouncing back after that holy pit stop that hit him midway through the race. Daniel Michel, another non-playoff competitor, to close out your podium. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we close out our coverage tonight. Ethan Fonseca Moreno and Lawson Peel. Well, that was the showdown of the century tonight, watching that fight between those two near the end. It's so close and hard to decipher even to the last lap in the checkered flag, but Moreno wins this fight for now. Patrick Thompson is going to come home in 6th place. A great effort for the 88. AJ Green to come home in 7th. Curtis Kelly, a quiet night, but ends up with an 8th place finish to be proud of. Brady Cox with a 9th place run. And Ryan Pandiccio, the Skybox Supra, rounds out your top 10.
Tyler Murray is able to come away with a P11 finish here in this race with Michael Newbraw in the 12th spot. Craig Parks comes away with the 13th place finish. Good effort from him. Kevin D'Elia in 14th. Christopher Bishop is able to recover to 15th after being involved in the lap 1 incident. Brandon Banks will finish in the 16th spot. CJ Munier in 17th. Trevor Haley appears to have been involved in an incident there in the late going. Will finish in 18th. Jaden Porter, unfortunately for him, will finish in 19th after all that damage from that lap 1 incident. Will probably eliminate him effectively from the championship contention. Eric Schaefer will finish 20th, 9 laps down, being involved in, again, that lap 1 incident as well. And going back to 21st, we have Craig Rowe. Jesse Prees will finish in 22nd. Adam Alishire in 23rd. Brandon Gillis in 24th. Tony Kivett in 25th. Craig Glauenslager will be in the 26th position. And Colin Forster, who didn't take the green flag, will end up in the 27th position. And that rounds out your field here from the Pocono Raceway.
That's your 27 car field from the Tricky Triangle. Everyone behind this man right here, Brandon Hawken, who gets to victory lane for the 5th time this season, and with 88 laps led on his resume tonight. Just dominance again, Brandon. It seems that every time you take the racetrack in this series, you always beat the competition flat out. Tonight was no different. You really didn't find a lot of pressure behind you on the racetrack. Just another standout victory. What does this one mean to you? Your second in the last 3 races, in fact.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I was happy to come here. This Pocono's always been one of my favorite tracks, and yeah, just something really neat about it to drive. And yeah, just I felt like I had a lot of really good speed here tonight, and yeah, it came down to a little bit of strategy there towards the end with. It was going to be close whether we took 2 or 4 tires. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, and I saw everybody come in. I was like, you know what? Yeah, we'll go with 4, and thankfully everybody else took 4 as well. And then the yellow came out there. I was like, oh man, it's gonna be tough here until the end. But yeah, I'm usually not the best at making decisions at the end of the race whether to pit or not, or 2 tires or 4 tires, but yeah, I thought I was just hoping everybody would start battling each other, and I'd be able to stay in front there with the slightly older tires. I think I was only on there for a couple laps, so they weren't bad, but on here they definitely do make a difference. And so I just, yeah, I knew I'd be at a little bit of a disadvantage for speed, but I had some really great track position, and there was a lot of guys that took 2 tires there. So there was a little bit of a buffer between me, Ethan, and Lawson, and yeah, I just had enough of a gap there to play with to be able to take it home. But yeah, that was a little bit nerve-wracking there towards the end. But yeah, glad to take the W, and yeah, just a really great race from everybody all night.
I can imagine it was a little nerve-wracking in those final laps. And talk us through that decision, of course, like everyone else, to have to pit again. It was a really awkward situation to where a caution came out through the race, and you guys had the first pit stop down without a hitch, but then you guys had to pit 2 more times within the last 40 or so laps. What was that like from your perspective, and how did you figure out the right place and the right time to come in?
Yeah, so yeah, I was just seeing what everybody else did. I built up just a little bit of a gap there over the run, and it wasn't much, but it was enough to where I could maybe like wait another lap to pit and see where everybody cycles out. And so I don't know. I was really conflicted whether to go with 2 or 4, and then I saw both Lawson and Ethan both took 4, so I was like, okay, I'm safe to take 4 now. And but yeah, they could have taken 2 and had a lead, and then I would have had to catch back up. And by the time the caution came out, yeah, it could have completely changed the whole race. So yeah, it was just it was really tough decisions to make. And I think we were all mostly expecting it to go green till the end, but there's always that one caution that it could happen, could not towards the end of the race, and then by then, yeah, it's all about track position and tires and trying to weigh the two. So yeah, I was on the right end of it this time, and yeah, most of the time I choose the opposite of what I should, but I made the good call tonight.
Final 2 races now. We're getting to the end of this 4-wide racing schedule. You've got Phoenix and Homestead left. And we know that you winning the last 2 of the last 3 races is certainly dominance. We know that if we see you in those next 2 races, it might just be 3 in a row to close out the season. What are your prospects looking like for Phoenix and Homestead to close out the year?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed both Phoenix and Homestead. They're some really great tracks, and I'm not sure which layout we're doing of Phoenix, but yeah, I like both of them, and yeah, of course the newer layout, you got the dog leg where things can get like really crazy going into turn 3 or turn 1 now, I guess, and in Homestead it's always been a lot of fun. You probably have quite a few different lanes to work with, and like it's been a little bit iffy depending on the car, so I'm not sure. We'll have to check it out. But yeah, it's either like a low line or you can run all over the place. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. And yeah, Homestead's a really unique track for a mile and a half, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, closing off the season with 3 tracks that are pretty much unlike any other track. So yeah, got some great variety, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, Brandon, on behalf of all of us here at the KBueno Racing Network, a big congratulations on your 5th win of the season. Before we let you go, anybody in particular you want to give the shout out or thanks to?
Well, as always, you guys up in the booth for putting on these awesome broadcasts. Everybody at 4Wide for putting the show on. Man, yeah, everybody who races in this league week in and week out, it's a lot of fun. It's a really great time. So yeah, just yeah, great race there with Kyle, Ethan, and Lawson there tonight. That was a lot of fun, and yeah, we'll look forward to the next one.
Well, Brandon, we appreciate the time as always. Big win here from Pocono Raceway, your 5th of the season. I think the domination will only continue from here on out. Always a great time talking to you, Brandon. Congratulations, and hopefully we see you at Phoenix next Wednesday.
Have a good one, guys. See ya.
Brandon Hawken, another big win here from the Tricky Triangle, has been lights out in almost every single race that he's taken a part of here in this series. We'll turn to second place where the storyline is huge. Francisco for 1, Kyle Benson, who gets the best finish out of the top 3 in the point standings. A statement night here at Pocono.
A statement night indeed for you, Kyle. You were able to have a pretty solid performance. Had this mistake on pit road, which put you back outside into the top 15. And you were able to put on a solid recovery drive, and then the strategy call to stay out there at the end. That's the reason why you're sitting currently P2 in the standings, 9 points behind.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely fun. I'm happy where I'm at. I just wish I was one spot better. I feel like I had something. But after that mistake on pit road, I thought my race was kind of over, and I was kind of just clawing back to get to the top 5. Because if I knew if I just stayed within the top 2 or top 3, I was going to have an okay points night, and I needed to lead a lap, so I did, and it helped. Just it was a rough one from going from 15th outside the top 15 and driving back up to the field, and I feel like I had the second best car. I just made a mistake on pit road, but now I'm talking with you guys. I'm about 9 points out, so hopefully I can keep the momentum rolling into Phoenix Phoenix, and then into Homestead and have a shot at it. But I don't know, if I just keep the mistakes at a minimum, I think I have a good shot at it. But it just really depends on what happens this year.
We saw you're able to come away with the win at Phoenix last time in this portion of the schedule. That late clutch win at Phoenix. If you're able to repeat that kind of performance, you give yourself a shot at the Homestead Miami Speedway, a track you've been notorious at. So what's your mindset going into these last 2 races, knowing what the gap is?
Just beat Lawson. If I can just beat Lawson, if I can at least get a lap led, I need to beat the 12 car. I need to beat the 21 car. That's pretty much the only 2 guys I'm really worried about. I mean, Hawkins really fast. If I have a shot to win, I'm gonna try it. But if I know Hawkins just gonna blow right by me, there's no point. But pretty much just need to beat those 2 guys. I knew it was going to get tight. I don't know if I had a shot coming in because I was such a low seed, but now we're sitting pretty good in the playoffs. Really just got to keep collecting points and having good runs like this definitely helps, and I just got to keep myself ahead of Fonseca and Lawson for the rest of the year, and I think I have a good shot at it. But I'd love to win at Phoenix or get a good points haul, but I just know how quick Lawson is at Homestead, and I just got to get on my high horse and put some good races together.
Beating the 21 and beating the 12 is the mindset. You're able to do that here today. What went into making that all possible, and who's all to thank?
Yeah, just got to thank Tyler and Chris and Craig, and they all came out tonight. You guys for a well broadcast. Always have a good time watching them back on my drives. Just pretty much just got to keep going forward. Just keep this momentum rolling and go into Phoenix with a shot to win and kind of go from there. But excuse me, I pretty much got to thank everybody else that comes to the league. Becoming the 4-wide every Wednesday, and we have some cool stuff coming up. Just keep posting on that. But other than that, that's going to be it.
Appreciate the time you take with us every week, Kyle, and congratulations on the solid effort to close in on the points lead, and we wish you luck going into Phoenix.
Yep, thank you.
That's Kyle Benson, only one lap led, second place finish, gets him now 9 points away from Lawson Peel. Safe to say, it gets really, really close when you look at those margins between the top 3 after tonight. We'll turn to the third place finisher, our second non-playoff driver in our top 3 interview section tonight, and it is Daniel Micho. Daniel, your best finish comes tonight at Pocono. It's your best finish since the season opener at Auto Club Speedway. A miraculous job to move through the field and make the charge late in the race. What was your mind like in those waning laps through all the late race yellows and then that run to the finish?
Yeah, towards the end of the race, I figured, okay, I knew I could push the car a little bit and gain maybe up to 5th. I know that Kyle was faster than me. Once Kyle got ahead of me on the pit stops, I was just like, okay, I gotta salvage what I can salvage. I was just gonna drive my way back up to 5th, knowing that I was at least that fast. I had AJ behind me, and we were just trying to drive through. But once the cautions came out, I figured, well, I had just pit. It was about 3 laps on my tires. I figured, considering the race is going to end soon, there's probably going to be a lot of wrecks. So I just stayed out hoping that that was the case. And luckily for me, I managed to keep my position.
And you spent a lot of the time running through the mid-pack with guys like Benson, AJ Green, Trevor Haley, Brandon Banks, ton of drivers that you were right in front of or around at that point. What was it like to race them? And, taking a pretty difficult Pocono track 1, but then adding in all that competition midway through the race and as the strategy continued to unfold.
It was pretty awesome. It was really hard to pass. There were positions to pass. You pretty much had to create a run off the corners and send it pretty hard. So you didn't want to use up your tires. You wanted to make sure you had them towards the end when everyone was falling off. But it was a lot of fun making moves and being able to put the car in places that you really didn't think you could, especially in turn 2 on the apron. If you got the left front on the apron, it still rotated and it was really well balanced right there.
Well, Daniel, a third place finish here from Pocono Raceway, certainly an exciting one. Final 2 races of the season upcoming. We know you've been in and out of the season, which depending on the races that you can and can't make, are you able to make the final 2 at Pocono, or rather at Phoenix and Homestead after tonight's race at Pocono?
I should be able to make the next couple races, and I really hope I can. This race, I barely got on in time. I had about 30 seconds of registration left, so we'll just see how it goes, and I'm hoping to have a lot of fun.
Well, nonetheless, Daniel, a big appreciation on this third place finish from the Tricky Triangle. Before we let you go, is there anyone in specific you'd like to thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, I'd like to thank all the DBR guys. It's been a lot of fun racing with them again. After that break, they brought me back in, and it's just a lot of fun racing with everyone in the league. No matter what happens, I know that there can be some wrecks and some contact, but it's a lot of fun being in here. And thank you guys for sticking through the broadcast, doing everything here. It's a great broadcast. I share it all the time, so thank you.
Well, that means a lot to us, Daniel, and the kind words go back to you as well for the phenomenal performance. And every time you take on the track, it's always exciting to watch you racing with this competition. Congratulations on the podium tonight from Pocono, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at Phoenix and Homestead to close out the season.
Yep.
That's Daniel Micho in the 25 car to close out tonight's top 3 interviews from Pocono, and the storylines extend past your top 3, Francisco, because we know what happened in those last laps between Lawson Peel and Ethan Fonseca Moreno, the battle that we were eyeing down the entirety of the race. And now we've got our point standings after the checkered flag here from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. This is what the picture looks like entering Phoenix. Francisco, 9 points separate Kyle Benson and Lawson Peel. Ethan Fonseca Moreno drops 1 point, so he is 13 points out. And it appears that's all she wrote for those that are still eligible for the championship this season. With Jaden Porter's finish tonight, he is back 38 points from your standings leader. So it looks like Peel, Benson, Moreno, your top 3, the big 3, entering Phoenix.
Yeah, those are the 3 with a still realistic shot of winning the championship. And Ethan Fonseca losing a point despite beating Lawson Peel on the racetrack is a huge blow to what he was hoping to be able to be at after this race. He was hoping to kind of be at that same kind of gap Kyle Benson is, because those 4 points are crucial, especially with the amount of races to go. But Kyle Benson, a winner at Phoenix Raceway. Lawson Peel at Phoenix has struggled in the past, has struggled in this race car when we went there in the spring, and now we'll be under the in the darkness next time around. So we'll see if those struggles continue for Lawson Peel, or if he's able to put up a decent enough run to hold on to that point lead. It's a huge opportunity for Kyle Benson and Ethan Fonseca to make up those points, because they know that at Homestead, Lawson Peel historically has been very good and very fast at having won previously and having finished top 5 in the other 2 times. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the points shake out. Jaden Porter, just a little bit too far back after his problems here tonight, is probably not going to remain mathematically eligible, but it does look like he's going to be a lock for 4th in the championship, well behind 3rd, well ahead of 5th, so no man's land for him. Everybody else just kind of filing on out there as we go on through. Brandon Hawken, win number 5 of the season, very impressive for him to tie Lawson Peel for the most wins on the schedule. But again, the talk remains that fight for the championship that now comes down to the 12 of Lawson Peel, the 21 of Ethan Fonseca, and of course the 38 of Kyle Benson.
Well, we talked about how tonight at Pocono could be the make or break race for many drivers. It was for the top 3. It's make or break. Final 2, Phoenix and Homestead, to which we'll turn to next Wednesday, where we will take on the Avondale, Arizona Speedway. Phoenix Raceway comes your way Wednesday, April 24th. You can find that right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern. You won't want to miss it. We are down to the final 2 races. This championship is far from decided. After Phoenix, we'll have a better picture as to who could hoist the trophy this season. Will it be Kyle Benson for the first time ever? Will it be Ethan Fonseca Moreno, who is able to hoist this first in his rookie season? And will it be Brandon Hawken? Or rather, not Brandon Hawken. Wow, I'm looking at the top 3 right now.
Wow,
That's
okay.
why I'm all over the place. But Lawson Peel getting his second title in the last 3 seasons. My bad there. Completely whiffed that one. But nonetheless, Phoenix next week, sure to be a fun one to watch. We'll have the coverage throughout all the way to the end of the rest of the season at Homestead at Miami Speedway. For Tyler Murray and everyone from the admin team and race council that makes this all possible at 4 Wide, for Charlie Byer and Keelan Belsha at the KBueno Racing Network, and for all of us on the crew tonight, for my colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, saying so long from the Tricky Triangle. Congratulations to Brandon Hawken on his 5th career 4 Wide Racing win. Championship still undecided heading into Phoenix Raceway.